and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted to the CPS website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person public participation will be taking place tonight in accordance with the Chelmsford School Committee public participation policy. Anyone speaking tonight during the public input portion of this meeting is notified the superintendent's office if they desire to speak and been provided with these guidelines. Upon request, written comments received no later than 12 p.m. on the day of the meeting will be read and made part of the record of the meeting during the second public comment session. So, welcome to this meeting of the Chelmsford School Committee. We have a lengthy agenda, so we'll start off with our last minutes.
Okay, I move that we approve the minutes of the regular school meeting of January 7, 2025.
I'll second.
Okay. Anybody have any corrections? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'm abstaining.
One abstention, okay? 3 aye and 1 abstention, yep. All right, next up, we'll hear from our student representatives.
All right, so term 2 officially closes on January 24th. Students will be turning in all missing work as grades close. We'll be sure to do that. Senior wrestler Masi Sadat recently made headlines on the Boston Globe, documenting his story from fleeing his home in Afghanistan at age of 13 to now scoring points on the mat for the Chelmsford varsity wrestling team. The Council of Chelmsford Schools is inviting parents and guardians of Chelmsford students to hear Katie Greer speak about the digital health and safety. This is at the CHS PAC on Thursday at 6:30. Tomorrow night, take the night off from cooking and join the CHS PTO at the establishment dine-in or takeout. Mention the CHS PTO flyer to benefit the after prom for the senior class. Midterms will be held on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for CHS students who are taking half-year courses. There will be early dismissal on Thursday and Friday.
Last week on Wednesday during our Pride Block was Reverse College Day, which gave current CHS students the opportunity to hear from CHS alumni about their college experiences, including the challenges and successes of transitioning from high school to college. Students were also able to ask questions and get personal responses. It was great seeing the Chelmsford alums, and thank you, Ms. Cunningham, for putting this together in the Career Center. And last Friday, our Leadership in Motion Everywhere Club hosted In Tune, a musical showcase at the PAC, and tickets were sold during lunches and at the door, with all proceeds going to the Lowell Humane Society. And from the DECA District Conference, 20 out of 54 CHS students who competed qualified for states. This is double the amount from last year, and congrats all, and keep up the great work. And I'll just name them, because I'm sure they worked very hard for this, but I might mispronounce some of their names. But Pranava Buri, Arvind Rao, Kush Patel, Am Patel, Matthew Lamb, Matthew May, Matthew Sleeman, Pranav Ajmera, Shivansh Badola, Pranav Simbasavan, Daksha Santhosh, Vinay Murugan, Molly Zhang, Rishik Kundu, Michael Hun, Ethan Jang, Aditya Praveen, Micah Thorin, Miles Redding Cooper, and Nathan Moore. So
I'm impressed that you get all those names.
Wow.
Holy
I was like out
when
of
the
breath.
guy leaves that does the graduation
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
you might have to.
You're on deck.
Good job.
All right, well, thank you both very much. Any other good news that we want to share?
Good news for Dr. Lang that the snowstorm came when there was no school, so he was able to sleep in on Monday. We're very happy for him. And this Friday marks the 90th day of school, which is halfway there. So looking forward to the days getting longer with the sun, and we're heading towards the end of the school year.
Great. Anybody else have anything?
I just wanted to share, I got to go to my first concert of the concert season last week with the 5th grade band, sort of their initial performance followed by a jazz band show. And I was really impressed, just really exciting to see how many student musicians there are in Chelmsford and how much the kids learn in such a short time, given their ability to get 4 days a week of intensive work with their teachers. So really great to see.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? All right, no public comment tonight?
No.
So we're on to new business.
We are going to jump right in because, as Dennis mentioned, we actually have a lengthy agenda tonight, unlike our first meeting in January. So we're going to make up for it tonight. And we have Josh Blagg and Mark Souza, the principal and assistant principal of Parker Middle School, with a bunch of students with them tonight. And we're going to hear a little bit about Parker and all the good happenings that are taking place there. This continues our series of every month having one of the schools in to talk a little bit about what they're focused on. So, Josh and Mark, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Lang. We're really excited to be here along with some of our awesome student ambassadors. It is our second year at Parker together in the new configuration of the grade 5 and 6 school. We're happy to report that we're thriving at Parker, that we're really gelling as a community. Our teams are really getting to know each other, not only the students, we have the entire fourth grade gelling for the first time and learning and meeting new friends, but also our staff. We're successfully melded the McCarthy and Parker staffs from a couple years ago to a Parker staff, and we're feeling very positive about the change and the momentum we've gained on that front. Tonight, we're going to be going over a little bit of overview of some of our improvement goals for the year, a service project and some of our student ambassadors will be talking about, and some of our tier two interventions that we've put in place on a school-wide basis that we're excited about because we think it's going to make a big impact in helping kids earn success. So, going right into it, our Parker School Improvement Plan, our achievement goal is during this year, Parker students will exceed 100% median to typical growth on iReady Spring 2025 math diagnostic. And in order to try to attain that goal, we're actively monitoring our iReady student usage, our benchmark data. Student progress in areas of need are targeted with tier 2 interventions and supports. A win block, which we'll talk a little bit about more later in the presentation, was instituted to create additional time for these interventions to take place throughout the school. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Souza to talk a little bit about our tier 2 interventions.
So we focused our tier 2 interventions this year in our professional development on the tier 2 interventions pertaining to 3 main areas of academics, behavioral, and social and emotional. These targeted interventions are basically driven by the teachers and staff and are implemented in the classroom either before class, during class, in the WIN block that we'll get to. And they're usually carried out for about 6 weeks with tracking that goes along with it to see the students improve in whatever area they've been focusing on. This summer, we started this planning with creating in our schedule a WIN block. So we added a 25-minute period to the schedule every Wednesday. And the WIN block stands for What I Need. It's a time where the teachers can utilize it for target intervention, have students doing makeup work, enrichment, basically whatever the students need. In some cases, it's an opportunity to grab a few students and help them, get organized or whatnot. Ideally, we could hopefully down the road add a couple more of these throughout the week, but we were able to at least get one in to start for this year. So our professional development this year, we tried to utilize the Panorama platform to develop our Tier 2 intervention groups and upload intervention plans and the documentations all right into the Panorama platform. I'd like to give a special thanks before I move on to our MTSS coaches, Megan Cologne, Kristen Lyons, Shannon Engel, and our guidance counselor, Autumn Dolan, and our computer tech support, Sherry Pannerton, who helped us develop these professional development days and helped us present them to the staff. And basically, we started, as you can see, the 4 main categories with identifying. We worked with the staff to identify and understand the various sources of data that were out there for them to use to develop their Tier 2 interventions, mainly around iReady Toolbox and the Panorama platform. At our professional development, the teachers were able to determine a group of students that they thought would benefit from an intervention, and then we worked with them during the professional development to learn how to actually create those groups right in Panorama so they could be tracked and housed right on the platform. From there, the teachers worked on accessing and utilizing the Panorama Intervention Strategies Library to develop and upload an intervention plan and create the documentation that they would be using throughout this intervention. And again, it would all be housed right in Panorama, which I'll get to in a little bit. then they were able to take that plan back to the classroom and carry it out with the students for the 6-week period, kind of changing and modifying as they needed to help students reach the end goal that they created for them. This, again, was all tracked in Panorama so that not only the teachers this year, but future teachers will have access to be able to see what interventions each particular student went through and what the success rate was for them. We've tied this into our kind of school reporting. We've asked, again, we kind of started out simple, having them just identify like a smaller problem so they could learn all the documentation and kind of learn the strategies behind it. And as we're moving into the year, we're asking teachers to, before they bring a student to our student support team, to try out one of these 6-week interventions so that it's already there in Panorama. And then once the SST team goes through the process of trying to identify help for the student, that whole SST is uploaded into Panorama under documents. And again, so that future grades, or when the kids move on to McCarthy in the high school, those teachers will be able to see everything that was done prior to them. And I have to give a big shout out to Karen Grabowski from over Harrington. She had done a lot of work with the Harrington staff on this, so we kind of utilized her as a tool of how we could bring it to Parker and get everything up and running. And it's been pretty successful, and the teachers have really responded to it. Anything you want to add?
Yep, that's good. All right, so we're going to keep this moving along. The second improvement goal that we were targeting tonight to talk about was our social emotional learning goal, and that is to ensure that students have strong relationships with staff and their peers, so students feel welcome, included, and safe in school. One of the big changes we did, we continued to use Second Step as our curriculum for social emotional learning, but we changed when the SEL block occurred to the very first 25-minute block on Wednesdays. In doing so, we could cut the homerooms into half. So basically every staff member has been assigned 10 to 12 students. So we wanted to make smaller pods of kids to really have intimate conversations, because a lot of these, the curriculum is really important, and kids are more apt to have meaningful conversations when it's a smaller, more intimate kind of setting. And we're finding great improvement with that in terms of just the level of conversation. Just walking through the building on Wednesday mornings, it's wonderful to see every staff member kind of being part of this school-wide initiative, and it's something that we really believe in. Coupled with that is in trying to create a safe environment where kids feel seen and heard. We've also kind of embraced the idea of service learning and how much we can do to improve the lives of those around us, and how having that service experience can affect the person doing it as well in a really positive way. So one of the things we did in the month of December was something called the Parker Be the Change Initiative. And it's be the change you want to see in the world is a quote often attributed to Gandhi, meaning that instead of waiting for others to make positive changes, individuals should actively take responsibility to create the change they desire in the world, essentially to be the catalyst for that positive transformation. So they took on that challenge, and each team individually chose a service project that was unique to them, that the kids and their teachers decided this is a change we want to make in the world. This is a positive impact that we want to make in the world. So we have 8 different teams, 4 for each grade. So we had 8 different service projects going on simultaneously in the month of December. So it was very busy, but it was very exciting. And during that holiday season, it's also good to have the kids really focus on others and not just themselves and what they may desire during that holiday season, that kind of thing. So it was really inspiring to see the kids embrace that. And it was just fun to be a part of. On the screen here, you'll see one of our art teachers, Ashley Norman, and our art students made a wonderful mural for the Be the Change project that still adorns our front lobby. It's a mural of Anne Frank, created by different students, making one of the panels to create the larger visage. Anne's message of service and hope is compelling and uplifting as well. So, without further ado, we wanted to call up a student representative from each team to just briefly go over what their project was all about. So I'm going to start with the Explorers and Indira Sangam. She can come on up and sit, and we're going to talk right here, Indira. Okay. Okay, so Indira is on the Explorers, and I'm going to let her talk a little bit about her project.
So, be the change you wish to see in the world. Good evening. It's a truly pleasure to meet you all today. My name is Indira Singham, and I'm from the Explorers 5A. And my team's service project was holiday cards. Our team worked to help provide holiday wishes to seniors and those in hospitals and nursing homes. We also gave them holiday bags with beautiful handwritten cards by each person in our team, with loads of all sorts of festive candy all in one bag. We helped benefit a few places with our heartwarming gifts, such as the Lowell General Hospital and the Brigham Hospital. Me being involved in this service project made me feel happy. When writing these cards to seniors and hospitals, it felt like I was helping the community by saying two small words: Happy Holidays, to people who don't really get any messages, and inspired me to do more like this for people who don't get much. And I felt good and happy about what I did, and I know it was for a good cause. And I know that my time in Parker Middle School, I will have many service projects like this. And a few words I wrote on my card was, I hope you're having a happy and a harmonious holiday season. And I know that the upcoming year I hope that the upcoming year continues to bring you joy. My Christmas wish is for you to have an amazing holiday. May all your holiday wishes come true. Have a dazzling Christmas and New Year. And last but not least, I want to give my deepest gratitude and a big thank you for Mr. Blagg and Mr. Souza for making this project happen and giving us students a lesson of giving, and how even small contributions can make a big difference in the lives of others. Also learning social responsibility and community service. And thank you for my teacher for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you everyone for listening.
All right, and next we have for the Voyagers, Team 5B is Sahana Balu. Come on up, Sahana.
Hi, my name is Sahana Bolu. I'm a 5th grader on Team 5B Voyagers at Parker Middle School. Our service project was to create welcome folders for new students at Parker. Students decorated folders with things they like about Parker, which included things like colorful pictures and words. Inside the folders, we included letters from current 5th graders that welcomed them to Parker and let them know what to expect at Parker. We also created Best of Chelmsford lists with our favorite restaurants, parks, ice cream, and more. Something that we included that was important was a map of the school and a list of clubs and activities. I hope that these folders will welcome students and make sure they have a good time at Parker.
Great job, Sahana. Next up from the Navigators, Team 5C is Jeffrey Long. Come on up, Jeffrey.
Hi, I am Jeffrey Long from Team 5C Navigators. One thing we did in our service project was try and spread kindness through the community. We wrote kind messages on cards and spread them throughout the school. Another thing we did was we made holiday cards for senior citizens with kind messages. We worked to help spread joy and kindness throughout the community of Chelmsford. This project made me happy because we were spreading joy throughout the whole community.
Excellent, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. Next up will be Grace Latroba, and that is from Team 5D, the Innovators. Come on up, Grace.
Hello, my name is Grace Ochoba, and I'm on the Team Innovators. Our service project was to make care bags for the kids in Emerson Hospital. Our team worked to provide a little bag filled with little items such as Play-Doh, fidgets, puzzles, crayons, cars, and little stuffies. Being involved in this service project makes me feel happy. I like helping others because it makes me feel good, and hopefully the kids in Emerson Hospital will feel happy when we give them their care bags.
Awesome. Great job, Grace. That's our fifth grade, and now we're going to call up our sixth grade. And the first team is 6A, the entrepreneurs, and that we have two representatives. We have Julia Hurley, and James Dudley. Come on up, guys. James, bring your chair up with you, okay? Go ahead.
Hi. Hello. My name is Julia Hurley, and I'm on the Entrepreneurs team, also called Team 6A. For the Be the Change project, our team decided to focus on food insecurity. By partnering with the Chelmsford Food Pantry alongside Meals of Hope, we had a food drive that provided money, non-perishable food, paper products, and hygiene supplies. When we finished all our classwork, we wrote letters and decorated holiday cards to put inside the supply boxes at the town's food pantry. The Chelmsford Food Pantry benefited from our team service project by being able to give donations and supplies to people less fortunate. This service project has impacted me and made me realize that not all people in our community can afford basic needs. Thank you.
Well done. James?
I felt really good to donate all of the food we had. We filled an entire truck with lots of food, and it felt really good and inspired me to want to do it again.
Good job, both of you. Thank you so much. All right, next up for Team 6B is Emily Nolan from the Engineers. Come on up, Emily.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Nolan, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Team Engineers. Our service project was creating placemats and goodies for Table of Plenty. Our team wanted to provide a fun holiday touch to improve their dining experience here in Chelmsford and to create something they look forward to. I know that I can speak for my entire team and that we hope that Table of Plenty and everyone that comes along with that really benefited from our project. This project inspired me and others to continue to help the community and continue to move forward and work on bigger projects in school and possibly outside of school. I know I am eager to try my best continuing this great work. Thank you to Mr. Black and the Parker staff for giving us a great opportunity helping the community. And I hope we put some smiles on people's faces, and I hope they had as much as fun as we had creating.
Good job. Next up from Team 60, the Inventors, is Carson Kim.
Hello. For our project, we chose to raise awareness and money for an organization called Water for South Sudan. This organization was started by a man named Salva Dutt, who grew up in South Sudan during the Civil War. He lived as a refugee for most of his life, faced a lot of challenges. When he grew up and was able to, he started this organization to help people in South Sudan have access to clean water. He does this by going there and digging wells. We learned about this project from a book called A Long Walk to Water, written by Linda Sue Park. To help raise money, our team did a few different fundraisers that our teachers organized. We got to choose to participate in. Some choices were a basketball shootout, a rowathon or running in the fitness room, a readathon, and a paint day. To raise awareness about this problem, some people made posters to hang up near the water bubblers that talked about the importance of water and using it wisely. Our team raised about $1,200. That was enough to get us entered into a contest to have Salva come to speak at our school. We will find out in the spring if we won.
Excellent, Carson. Great job. And next up, our last student representatives are from 6D, the Architects, and that is Carter Thornton and Jack Davis. Come on up, guys.
Hello, my name is Jack Davis, and I'm part of the 6D Architects. Our service project is a book drive. Our team donated 200 to 300 books. Our organization that we use is Up With Books. They donate books to the less fortunate. Being in this service project made me feel good because I was helping other kids with no access to learning or reading. Kids who don't read at home will likely get learning problems.
Hi, my name is Carter Thornton. I'm on the team 6D Architects. Our service project was a book drive. We wanted to make sure all of our class could contribute, so we made upwards of 150 bookmarks to go with the books being donated. The book drive made me more grateful for what I have, and it impacts me to see how it feels to not have books outside of school.
Great job, guys. All right, well, so that, obviously, the kids are amazing ambassadors for our school, and we're really, really proud of the efforts they led. They really led from start to finish and drove this project, so we're really proud of them, and that's our presentation for Parker Middle School tonight.
Anybody have any questions?
Can we
Yeah, make a comment, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. First of all, I love the name of the teams. It's amazing. It's really, really great. Secondly, the thought about doing these service projects, thank you so much for doing it, because I think it's so important. We live in a community, and you are showing everybody in this community that we, the schools, are very much a part of them, and that you're willing not only to receive, but also to give back. So I really, really appreciate that you did that, and that you really are ambassadors in this for the entire district. So thank you. Kudos to all of you. All the presenters, you were amazing. You did a great job for your team. And I just feel very proud to be on the school committee watching you today. So congratulations.
Anybody else? What are you gonna?
I got applause.
Susan? All right, whichever.
I got a microphone ready. Thanks for everyone who presented. I really think a mission of schools is to teach students to be contributing members of society, and you all prove that you're getting a really good early start on that and really just helping the society and the communities that you're growing up in. So great work and good presentation, so I really appreciate that. In terms of the other presentations, I love what you're doing with the SEL blocks and putting that into the smaller groups for second step. I think that's a great idea to get kids feel like they've got a really nice cohesive team that they can feel they belong to. So I think that was a wonderful decision that you've made. And I do have a question about the WIN block.
Sure.
So does every single student have something to work on? I mean, because sometimes you don't think of tier 2 as being for everyone, but you find something for everyone to do that's meaningful during that WIN block?
There's always, to answer your question, not everyone is involved in a tier two intervention every Wednesday. It really is what that student needs. Sometimes if they're not doing that, they might be getting extra enrichment from that to push them forward in their curriculum. Yeah. They might be making up a quiz or test or getting some extra help in a duo or a trio with a teacher. It really depends on the kid. But yes, it's they're with their homeroom at that time or their base teacher, and that time is dedicated, and the teacher kind of directs what they will be doing that day, depending on what they need, right?
So everyone's assigned something meaningful.
Yes, it's, some weeks they might be all cut up and they might be able to even, if they're doing wonderfully, they might even be able to read for 25 minutes, which is wonderful. But a lot of times, you had trouble with this skill. Let's attack that.
Okay, just curious.
Sorry, trying to make it so you all can hear me, but also look at you. For all the students, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing. I love hearing directly from you all. As somebody who's spent a lot of my career helping to help students lead service learning projects, I know how immensely hard it is to go through the whole process together of finding agreement on what to do, how to divide and conquer and tackle all the pieces of the project together, and make sure that you kind of have the impact you want to. So that's really big work for 5th and 6th graders to be taking on, and I hope you all feel really good about yourselves and what you and your peers have accomplished. I also had a question, just curious. So I know that you mentioned that these are some shifts, some of the interventions and the ways that you're doing WIN block and SEL block are shifts. And I'm curious, mid-year, if you're feeling like these were the right shifts to make, if you're getting, evidence that things may need to shift again next year, in terms of, I'm thinking kind of the structural shifts you've made around how these are scheduled, how students are divided, or if you feel like it's the sweet spot at this point.
I'd say yes and no. I mean, I think it's a learning process. I think we're definitely happy with how we shifted when the SEL was happening, and it really carved out because we kind of cut that period in two. We took basically the performance block that meets every other day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and we split it in two. And we made the first half of it the SEL block on Wednesday first thing, and then the WIN block happens where their performance block would have been.
Right.
So we feel like we made good tactical use of that time, and so far we're encouraged because more staff are not only staff have always done tier 2 interventions, but we're documenting it. We're trying to put that data to use, and then storing it so it can, like Mr. Souza said, help inform future teachers. Oh, this student had this difficulty, say, with executive functioning. This strategy seemed to work with this student, that kind of thing. So hopefully, I think we're on the right path, but we'll see. Time will tell.
And has Panorama as a tool met what you hoped it would do in terms of supporting the work that you're doing?
I mean, I think so for sure, because it's kind of a one-stop shop. We can use it to see all the student data and learn a lot. We use a ton. We use it every day, but even more so, the teachers are using it.
As I say, the resources
So
it's providing.
it's becoming a more utilized tool every day. It's becoming the go-to, which is teachers are unlocking how much it can help us. So I feel like we are taking advantage of that platform. I know it's not a cheap platform, but it's something that really kind of helps us meet the needs of the kids. So yeah, we're encouraged by it for sure.
Thank you.
Not taking anything away from the adults. It's great to hear about what's going on in schools, but the students that was a highlight of tonight, and it's great not just that we can see it, but other people in town can see it. These meetings are filmed, and hopefully other people can see all the good things that go on in schools, not just reading, writing, arithmetic, but learning to be good citizens and all that type of thing. So I really appreciate you came here tonight and let us know what's going on, and hopefully everybody else sees it as well. So thank you all for coming.
I just wanted to add, when I was your age, I don't remember doing anything that impressive. I stole one of your ideas. I'm going to bring it to the high school, the card
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Good
Jody.
work, everybody. It's good to hear the kids.
Nice job.
Just amazing.
All right. Yeah, I know.
Which idea?
And then there was one.
The card making for the elderly. I was like, you can do that for Valentine's Day.
That's a lovely
The
idea,
National
yeah.
Honors Society.
That's great.
It's like fairly easy.
Easy but high impact.
Yeah. I was like, maybe we can do this too and hand them out.
That's right.
Inspiring tests. Inspiring tests.
I know, we only see tests, usually headshots.
Surprise.
Well, second report this evening, presentation for you is Tess is here from District Management Group. And for those watching, District Management Group is an organization that we partnered with 3 or 4 years at this point. They originally helped us put together a strategic plan for the district, and then we've done a couple of different offshoot projects with them. We did a special education opportunities review a year and a half ago. They're doing some breakthrough results work with us at McCarthy Middle School this school year, so they're a good partner in what we're doing. And this year, we decided to have a mid-year update in January, so Tess is going to provide a mid-year update with regard to where we are already in year 3 of the 5-year strategic plan. So we're moving along. And then Tess will come back again sometime this summer, and we'll do kind of the year review. But Tess, I will turn it over to you to just give us a little update on where things stand with all the different groups. And ahead of time, because I know people do watch, I thank each of the groups for their work. They've been putting a lot of time into this implementation of the strategic plan. It was one thing to put it together, but then another to actually roll it out. So I appreciate everyone's work on this, and I will turn it over to you, Tess.
Great. Good evening, all. Good to see you. Those were some big shoes to fill that I had to, but it really was so great to hear from Parker and just a lot of the initiatives that are happening being very aligned to the strategic plan. So I'll make some of those connections throughout, but really the work of the strategic plan living every day, as you heard directly from students. So 2 things I'm going to do this evening. Actually, one, so I'll give an update on the overall strategic plan implementation, and then I'll dive a little bit more deeply into the paraeducator work, so aligned to one of the priority areas, and give an update there. So just as Jay said, want to thank especially these folks up here for leading different priority areas and really doing the work of implementing the strategic plan. Over the course of the year, we spend a lot of time over the summer and fall determining what actions and initiatives would take place to implement the strategic plan. I guess, yes, this is exactly halfway through 2.5 years, the strategic plan, which is exciting. And then we continue throughout the year monitoring progress to make any adjustments. Just as a reminder, so I know school committee has seen this, but the role that not only the folks I shared who are part of that steering committee in the middle and the left, each of them leads subcommittees as well of about 8 people. So 8 times 5, about 40 individuals really leading this work, and then others being involved. But I think, again, what is most critical to point out is how it does trickle down to the schools, and you can see that in the actions of Parker. So this is the framework, as you know, that the strategic plan is built upon. Tonight we'll focus on those goals and initiatives, and I'll provide some updates for each of the priorities. So always like to ground, I won't read it to you, and Susan did a good job summarizing mission of the schools tonight, but just mission and vision that guide all of the work. The theory of action really focus on district leaders providing that direction, principals creating the culture in the building, and teachers fostering an inclusive learning environment to reach that vision. So now I'm going to jump into the meat of tonight. You're familiar with this, but just for others watching as well, there's a lot on here. So up top, we have the metrics for each of the priorities. So this is academic achievement, which states the district will focus on mathematical achievement, particularly in elementary and middle grades, K through 8, to build a strong foundation for academic success in high school and beyond. So you saw this data over this summer. The only new data point that I wanted to highlight is that first one, percentile of students with adequate annual growth in math. So this is student growth percentile. Last year, you had a 52.4 student growth percentile on average as measured by MCAS. This year, this past school year, you ended at 55. So really just great growth this past school year on that. So wanted to celebrate and looking to maintain that growth in the next year. So that's one bright spot. I'm going to report out, and I have some notes just from each group in our last meeting. We took some time to reflect on both bright spots this year for each priority and any challenges that were being addressed. So that one data point was definitely a bright spot. The other I want to highlight is, so the 3 initiatives this group are working on are seen below. I want to highlight that last one, promote inclusive instructional practices within the general education classroom to meet the needs of students with disabilities. This was really important to ensure that instruction or support for students with disabilities wasn't living in a totally separate priority, but really embedded into academic achievement. So there have been 15 PD sessions created and delivered around inclusive practices. Initial feedback from teachers has been positive, and folks reported that they really liked the PD was specific to what they teach. So bright spot. One challenge that the group is addressing is that second initiative around the iReady program this year using iReady Pro, which provides additional reporting and information, especially for middle school students who are missing foundational skills. But just, teachers have a lot of responsibilities, so just learning this new platform to support this academic growth in the district. So that is the summary from academic achievement. I'll just pause here to see if there's any questions.
Just on the target so that first one there, the highlighted one, so the target for 25 is the same as what we had 20. Is that because 24 was over the target?
Yes, exactly. It was over the target. So actually, I should say that the target for 2024, we don't have this, was 54. So you surpassed the target, yeah.
All right, I was wondering why that wasn't the other one that didn't go. Okay. Any other questions on this particular item? Okay.
Great. All right, so again, a lot of data here. So this is the equity priority. The district will focus on achievement of students with disabilities as well as those who are economically disadvantaged in order to ensure equitable outcomes across the district. There, just you can see student growth percentile was 49 this past year, so a little lower than overall student average. So just to focus on the initiatives, there's a lot going on. I'll call out a few. So the first bright spot this group wanted to highlight around the implementation and rollout of the new paraeducator roles and responsibilities. I'll talk much more about this, but just they wanted to highlight 4 of the 5 development sessions for paraeducators have already been administered, and I'll review the results of those in a bit. The second, this is really exciting, the rollout of the new IEP has been very successful, and staff had heard both from parents and advocates just how impressed they were with Chelmsford in utilizing the form. And this is really important because the new IEP really ensures that the way student needs are identified and goals are written and services are very aligned. So I think just to be complimented by parents, advocates on this is really something to celebrate. It's been a lot of work for many districts across Massachusetts. And then just one challenge I'll highlight around the data on student placements. So the group has been pulling data to take a look at where are students receiving their services when they have IEPs. This has been very intensive just in being to pull and analyze. And so far, some of the data is not aligning to what the group expected. So they're just digging into that to determine and ensure that the district has a really clear picture of our students receiving services in the general education setting, resource setting, et cetera, to be able to inform decisions that way. So a lot going on here. Those are the couple I wanted to highlight, but I will pause for any questions.
I do. A comment first. I thought the descriptions of the PDs that are offered in this, on this initiative were excellent. Sounds like that's going really well, that part of it. I do want to, there was the identify the continuum of educational supports to provide students with high-quality instruction, and then you just talked about really taking a close look at where students with disabilities are receiving instruction. And I want us to just always keep focusing on not just where, but by whom. I did print out a page. Like one of my very first school committee meetings was when John Kim came and did that special ed opportunity review. And some things I don't want us to lose sight of are he had presented us with a chart that showed the average special education teacher spends 56% of their time supporting students, and at some schools and levels, that amount of time was quite a bit less. And I would like to hope that at some point we review that and see that teachers are able to spend more time directly with students, and that there were some very specific recommendations that the district might consider regarding special education teacher roles, so how much time they should be spending directly with students. So as I said, as we're looking at where students with disabilities receive an instruction, I think it's really important to also keep looking at who they're getting that instruction from. I just don't want to lose sight of that.
Yep, great. I'm glad you're pulling that out. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I appreciate your bringing that up, Susan, and would agree that that is a valuable exercise. I also wanted to just ask, if you may not know the answer to this, but that feels like an incredibly important exercise, going through and figuring out where the instruction is happening from whom. And I would hope it's happening in a way that kind of can be shared across the district and evaluated year over year. And I'm just curious where this data is being kept and if it is being made available to, obviously in ways that safeguard student privacy is necessary, to other educators and school leaders to be able to, monitor and intervene if necessary, if shifts need to happen.
Yep. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the data's coming from X2, and then I think there's some cross-functioning happening.
That's
to make
I
sure.
wondered where the
Yes,
crosswalking was
yeah,
happening.
yeah. I know Bill has been involved. Linda, I don't know if you want to add to that.
So it sits in Panorama, but this is also coming from iReady, so iReady feeds directly into Panorama, and then we have our information in our SIS as well.
So this info about like where they're receiving instruction and potentially
That would
from
then be
whom?
in their SIS.
Yeah, okay.
X2.
X2, Aspen, yes.
Yeah, okay. So that's somewhere where educators can access it and review it, okay.
And I think this is a good example, actually, as an initiative that started, that now is kind of, I think, what you're getting to turning in. It's like, okay, we want this insight around where students are being served, and even more importantly, what are the systems and structures to set up to be able to do that on an ongoing basis, because it's not an easy task. So I think, like, this is I'm not surprised that this is just something that maybe was taking a little longer. Instead of, oh, let's do this data pull once, it's actually, how do we take a look at the data we have, make sure it's clean and easy to analyze to get those insights. So yeah, data coming from multiple places.
I also feel like there's so much value in exploring to make sure that there's, parallel or like equitable practices across the different elementary schools, and that there's some understanding of how it's going to work vertically for students as they grow through the district. So I think there's a lot of value in it, but a lot to also kind of turn into decision-making and action.
Make meaning, make sure we're not just data rich, but information rich as well. Great. All right, so SEL, and you heard a lot from Josh and the team tonight on what is happening on the ground, very aligned to these metrics. But again, the social emotional learning priority is the district will focus on sense of belonging and relationship building for K through 12 students. So one data point I did want to provide here, just because, a lot of the data points I've reviewed sometimes are once a year measures. Panorama is used both at the beginning of the year and end of the year, asking these same questions. So if you see that green highlighted column, you can see beginning of year data. So a couple things to call out here. Sense of belonging, pretty much right where you ended the last school year. For grades 6 through 12, sense of belonging really shot up from where you ended the last school year. So we're not going to adjust any targets at this point. Those are end of year, but just can help inform and kind of predict where we may see ourselves at the end of the year. And then those supportive relationships, you can see those numbers just continue to increase and remain high at 90%, 87%. And again, I think it's just a testament to the work that's happening every day in the buildings, as you heard tonight. So wanted to share just that beginning of year data and what we may expect later on. And then the other thing just to talk about here, the group wanted to highlight is around restorative practices. That has been well received received. The district is using a train the trainer model and using community circles, which are being implemented in classrooms, and they've seen some positive outcomes there. What the team is focusing on that, again, just has been work to put in is around the transition document. So making sure that students, as they transition between schools, especially with the separation of grades in Parker and McCarthy, that students are set up well and feel that sense of belonging throughout. So just a focus of the year for this group. I'll pause here and see any questions.
Questions on this? Nope.
I just want to say again, like those supportive relationship numbers really are just through the roof compared to other districts I work with. And so being able to maintain those has just, been such a bright spot to see. So great work. Great, human capital. So the district will focus on teacher prep partnerships as staff development, as well as staff development in order to ensure strong academic instruction for diverse student populations. This priority area has a lot of overlap with academic achievement. Of course, you have to develop staff to get to those academic results. And so this group just talked about the PDs, again, that have happened to support diverse learners around inclusive practices. Just a continued challenge, as in many similar districts in Massachusetts, just attracting teachers and expanding employment of diverse educators. But the district did apply for some grant funding under the new Educator Diversity Act. And so just hoping, I don't know when you all hear from them, but something that has happened to support that. Again, a lot of overlap with academic achievement, but I'll pause here for any questions.
This might be more of a question for district administrators, but I'm curious. Obviously, I'm concerned about the very low percentage of educators who feel prepared, specifically to the differentiation items on the top. That's less than half of our staff that feel that preparation for differentiation. And I can appreciate that growth happens slowly, but that does feel like something that the right support and training could make the future targets go up quite a bit. I'm just curious what specifically is happening to support educators with that differentiation for diverse student populations, and how that's going, and if there's any potential of seeing bigger jumps in that in the years ahead. Because I'd hate to feel like 3 years from now we still have less than half of the staff feeling prepared for that.
I think, and we had this conversation last year when the data came out, that we have to really actually define what is diverse. Because I think people look at that differently, because it's interesting, because when you get down to culturally responsive, some people might think, well, that's diverse,
higher.
right? So it's very, that's an important part of it. But regarding the diverse populations, I do think that we still have some educators that, we have a unique set of students that are coming into our schools. We also have, I think they're looking more at like special ed, how do we support those students, right? So that is those courses that we're running, those opportunities for them to collaborate with their peers in order to try and understand, okay, this is how we would teach and how we would have them in the regular ed classroom. So it does go with the academic one, because we're trying to look at those inclusive practices. So it's not like special ed's running this thing and then regular ed's running this thing, and then some kids take off and go and have some L services and speech and everything else. How do they all work together? Because we have to teach all students, and we're responsible for all of them. So hopefully with some of this PD that's going on and time for them to collaborate with peers, we'll hopefully see some changes in that and find out what this question really is asking.
Well, you brought up what was going to be part two of my question, which was I wonder how much of this may be semantic, because I was hinging on the difference between the top two and the bottom two being the differentiation question, but you brought up the other thing. What do we mean by diverse populations versus what do we mean by culturally responsive? And so, I don't know if there is any work from the committee to explore different ways of sort of getting this data that might paint a different picture than the phraseology, because even as somebody who works quite a bit with surveys on this topic, I'm not sure. I would be very clear on, how a teacher might answer that question, regardless of how they're actually prepared.
We'll be able to see the questions underneath the main topic there to see if that's what's confusing, or is it just the actual topic that they're saying here that's confusing. So we have to
Yeah.
kind of dig into that a little bit more.
I'm also curious if there's been any talk about moving beyond teachers' feeling of preparation, and if there has been any talk of using, observation, supervisors using observation tools that look for, there's kind of peer-reviewed tools out there that look for the hallmarks of culturally responsive and differentiation-focused teaching and learning, just to see if teachers' feelings about their own preparation matches what's happening in the classroom.
In the teacher evaluation tool, there is on DESI set, they have look-fors, actually, that's what they're.
Right, that's, yeah.
For. So they could actually say, these are the, 2 indicators that we're gonna dig a little bit deeper in and see if the look-fors are there, because I agree with what you're saying. There's a lot of times, like, I'll have teachers like, but I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know how this is going, and I go into their classroom and I'm like, but you're doing it. They just don't know how to name it. And that's probably the nature of the beast of teachers, because we're always like, what are we supposed to be doing? I don't know, am I doing the best that I can, do for these kids? So I do think that what they feel compared to what is actually happening are 2 different things.
Yeah, I just think it would be interesting to get that data as well. Obviously aggregated, right? But what the overall picture that is seen by observation is, and how that may or may not align with the feelings of preparation. I think that in the long run could be very useful as a tool for better understanding what's going on.
Any other questions on this part?
Great. All right, and last but not least, facilities. So the district will enhance educational facilities to provide students with safe and modern facilities that support innovative student learning. So a couple bright spots here. So got accepted into the feasibility study phase for the new Parker Middle School project, and you all were able to accomplish everything ahead of time. So getting a 2-month jump start on that process, which is great. Also, first time all 10 projects submitted were funded by the capital plan group. And I think, Jay, add here, you got a little extra than what you initially asked for, correct?
I think our target was always around like the $2 million range, and we came in about 2.8 million.
Yep.
So we're above even last year's target, last year's actual, which is good.
Yep. Great. And then the only kind of challenge or just area that is being worked on a bit more this year is the work order initiative. So that second one, town engaged to retool that product that has been used, and it's just taking some time and effort to get that retooled. So significant lift in addition to everything else going on. But overall, I think just some really great bright spots, especially around the Parker Middle School building project and being able to stay ahead of schedule. Any questions here? Great. All right. So I'm just going to dive, and I think, Susan, you have looked at this, but just to ground in the paraeducator work, again, that is tied to supporting students with disabilities and IEPs. So last year, a group really worked to refine the roles and responsibilities based on the opportunity review, and this year has really been focused on training and providing professional development on those adjusted roles and responsibilities of paraeducators, defining success and monitoring progress of that implementation, and just over the course of the year adjusting as necessary. So here's the group working on this. So we've got district leaders, school leaders, staff, general education teachers, special education teachers, paraeducators from every level to be able to provide input. So really this is just happening throughout the year of the new responsibilities and monitoring progress. One thing I'll call out is that that working group you just saw who met a lot last year is meeting 3 times throughout the course of this year. So we've met once, we'll meet in February and May, just to make sure that as issues arise, the district is able to address them this school year instead of waiting till the end of the school year to determine what was effective or not. So this is the development that has been provided to paraeducators. I will call out first just the first 2 sessions, which occurred in September. So talking about the role of the paraeducator and best practices and adult collaboration to support students. It wasn't only paraeducators who attended that development, but also special education teachers and general education teachers, just given the role of the paraeducator does not just impact that role, but also how they work with other staff members. And then paraeducators have received 2 other PDs around supporting the diverse needs and disabilities of students and supporting students' social, emotional learning and growth. And there will be 1 more in March around supporting student academic success and paraeducator role in that. So I'm going to now review just some of the feedback that we have gotten as a way that the group has measured success throughout this school year. So as I mentioned, that first development, the participants were general education teachers, paraeducators, special education teachers, and some related service providers as well across all of the levels. And the feedback that we got at the beginning of the year from all staff in September, we asked them to rate on a scale of 1 to 7, 1 being strongly disagree, 7 being agree, their belief in these following statements. So you can see here, I understand the refined role of the paraeducator in Chelmsford, 76% of staff saying agree or strongly agree. I believe the refined role of paraeducators will positively impact student outcomes. 81% agree. And lastly, I understand how the refined role and responsibilities of the paraeducator may impact my role. 75%. So this was start of year, kind of gathering that data from all staff, and then just diving a bit more deeply into paraeducator data, given, as I said, they have had additional PDs across the course of the year. So we have asked these same questions throughout all the PDs as a way to monitor progress. So you can see here, September, October, January, that question around, I understand the refined role of the paraeducator has dipped a bit in October and January. And so something the group will talk about next month. You know, I assume start of the school year, things are running more smoothly, challenges arise, so not super surprised to see a dip, but something we'll definitely explore with the group to address. Same thing here with the second question. I believe the refined role is positively impacting students. You see a bit of a dip in October and January, kind of dip in October, back up a bit in January, but a little lower than the beginning of the year. And then staying pretty consistent, just collaboration with other special education teacher and general education teachers. So as I said, what's I think most important here is that we'll be able to review this data with that working group next month so that we can really understand why are some of these scores decreasing overall. Still positive, but just want to make sure that as barriers arise, we can address them now through the spring ahead of the end of the school year. And then the last thing I will talk about is just we also got feedback on the actual content of the sessions beyond just the refined role. So the first one you are looking at is paraeducators confidently being able to collaborate with others, 74%. The second one was around understanding the variety of disability categories, 82%. And lastly, around having an understanding of social emotional learning and how to support students there, 70%. So overall, I'd say the topics of these sessions really have resonated well with staff, which is good because time for PD is limited, and so important to get this feedback on the content as well. So before I wrap us up with next steps, let me just pause for any questions on the paraeducator work.
All Are you finding that it's a challenge because this group, the para group, tends to change? We see, in our reports, resignations, new people being brought on. How are they ensuring that continuously the role is defined for any new person that comes on board and so on? How is that working?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's actually, Massachusetts DESE just put out a bunch of modules for onboarding for paraeducators. And so that's something the group is going to talk about, is how to utilize those resources for new paras coming on, in addition to obviously the work that the group has done. But that will be by the end of the year, just what does the onboarding plan look for paraeducators, in addition to looking at retention rates, just to see have those changed at all.
That's great.
Yeah.
Because that to me was a concern. The other thing is, have you been able to track whether the paras really get to be paras versus being in the classroom as
Subs. I know that's data we're working with Joanna on pulling that
Okay.
sub data because,
That's
yeah,
great.
yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'd be interested in that.
Any other questions on the? No, it's great that we're making some progress, We've talked about this for a couple of years now, so we're.
Yeah.
I just want to tell you too that today we have a presentation by Parker, but we've had a couple of other presentations by schools. And each time I am truly impressed by how much people are within the schools are focusing on the strategic plan. And I think that it's the group, the team that was brought together includes, administrators and teachers and so the whole team has been able to do that at every school that we've heard from so far. I've been listening for this to try to see, and I think, to me, it's been obvious that they are working on it.
Yeah. No, it definitely, the strategic plan does not sit on a shelf in
No.
Chelmsford, as I say. It is living.
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
I wanted to add that. I think that's really evident here, that the strategic plan really is being followed and constantly updated, and being involved in the Zoom groups with the subcommittees has been very helpful to me, and I think to the other people who participate, to just always keep a focus on what the strategic plan is. I hear the principals at the PTO meetings will talk about things, at the presentations we hear are always linked to it. So everyone's really looking. I think it's really helping to align everything so that everyone is aware that the district as a whole is looking at these goals together. And I think having DM group, for people who might worry about the cost of something like that, of paying for a consulting group, has really paid off. I think you and your group have really helped to keep everyone on the right path with that, and really to facilitate those meetings. I really feel like it's been money well spent in the development of the plan, but in the implementation as well. It's definitely been
Sorry,
worthwhile.
the school improvement plans too. I mean, it's.
Yeah, right,
those,
they're
yeah.
all aligned, and I think it's been a very worthwhile
Good point.
endeavor to spend the money on that.
Great.
So thank you.
Well, thank you all. Thank you. And yep, so we will see you again this summer. But in the meantime, the groups will just continue on all the work they're doing. So thank you.
Well, thank you as always.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, continuing on with the agenda, the third item, Joanna, do you want to just put your plug in for reminder for kindergarten registration?
So at the end of the month, the 28th and 29th, families will come in to register for kindergarten for next fall. They can go online and book their appointment, so they'll come here and have about a 15-minute appointment with their school clerk and get all the documents together right then and there. So then we'll get a good sense of how many new kindergartners were coming. I do have an update. We've had 217 appointments in those 2 days, so that's wonderful. It's good to know early on who's coming to school next year.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanna. Next up on the agenda, I just have an update for you. Maybe a month and a half or so ago, I gave you a schedule of the different school presentations. and we hadn't yet fit in the department presentation. So just wanted to put it back in like one cumulative document for you. Linda was able to work with each of the departments to schedule their presentations throughout the course of the school year, just so you can kind of have it on your calendar to know when different groups are coming to present. That's the second column on the right. So more just for your planning purposes.
Are we going to have technology? Is Bill going to come in at some point?
Yeah, these are the curriculum
Yeah.
kind of departments, but the regular central office departments, like Bill usually comes
Right.
closer to May or June, because he'll do his year in review, and then he'll talk about summer projects. Amy Reese from Special Education will typically come, and she'll do a little update for us as well. Those can be scheduled whenever. I wanted to get the biggest, the kind of the curriculum departments on here with the schools, just so that we could know for planning our agendas. But yeah, you'll certainly hear from Bill and Amy as the year goes on.
Great. Any questions on the updated schedule?
All right, we're flying. Moving along now, Linda is going to actually share with you a little update with regard to where we're at. And I know this was a topic we've been talking about, the high school, the competency determination since the election, and the question pertained to MCAS. So we'll turn that over to Linda.
That was a good MCAS presentation from me. So, yes, we want to talk a little bit about the competency determination. I did this set up more like, almost like a Q&A, because that's what's happening. These are the questions that come up to me all day long. So like, is MCAS going away? No, it is not going away. We are still administering MCAS. We're actually putting in all of our documents now to run the spring MCAS, and we're actually doing the retakes that are still happening. This law that went into effect as of December 5th is only for the high school competency determination. It does not affect the other grade levels. It's only for CHS. So it's not going away, and we are going to be doing MCAS as we normally do.
So high school will not take them at all, though?
No, high school is taking the MCAS.
Okay, because it just said 3 to 8, yeah.
Yeah, 3 to 8, and then the high school's underneath it.
Okay,
So high school is taking their MCAS, it's just that the competency determination is not going to be MCAS anymore. So what is a competency determination? It's always been MCAS. So according to Mass General Law and also through DESE, it is a condition for high school graduation. We have to show some basic competency in mathematics, ELA, and in science, technology, and engineering. And what you see up there now is, right now, the focus is going to be for the class of 2025. In the class of 2025, those were the competency determinations for those students. And then for the class of 2026 and beyond, that's when they made the change, and the competency determinations for proficiency were a little bit higher. So the new standards that are standing in there for students. So that's why we're seeing some types of little upticks for the other classes. But right now, our focus is for the class of 2025. And in addition to meeting the competency determination, there are also high school requirements to graduate high school. And we follow the Mass Core requirements, which is actually beneficial for Chelmsford, and I'll explain that in a little bit as we go through this presentation. So we do require the 4 years of English, math, 3 years of science that are lab-based. We also have our social sciences, history classes. They have to have at least 3 classes in that, 2 consecutive years of world languages, fine and performing arts, practical arts, PE, health, wellness, and their other courses that equal to at least 240 credits. I will tell you, most high school students, I get 270 credits because they take about 70 credits per year anyways as they go through, but the minimum requirement is 240 credits, meeting all of those requirements, which for social sciences has to have U.S. History 1 and U.S. History 2.
So, quick question, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I just want to make it clear for everyone. No one could ever graduate just by doing well in MCAS. You had to be attending your classes and doing your assignments and getting the passing grades to earn the credits. An MCAS alone was never going to give someone a diploma.
It is one
if
of
you,
the- Right, it's part of the graduation
so the MCAS
requirement
part is
to
going
these
away, but
classes.
what we've already had,
Correct,
this has already been in place for us.
correct.
Okay.
Just the competency determination piece is how that's being determined is shifting, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. They had to meet and then this doesn't even get into our attendance policies and everything else that goes in. But they had, all students have to take this class.
But they've had to. That part
Always.
is not changing
Correct.
for us.
Correct. The only changes in graduation requirements that happened is when the Mass Core came into place, but we were
Sure,
pretty much
but that's been a
meeting it
long time
anyway.
now.
And when you see only the 30 credits in science and in history, most of our students take 4 years. I'm sure the students that are sitting here can attest to that. They take 4 years of science and 4 years of history. So that's just the minimum requirements.
Right,
that are
okay,
in there.
thank you.
Yep, no, that's important. So what the change was for the competency determination, and this was the language that actually came right out of that question too, was they had to demonstrate that common core skill of competencies, and it was always measured through it. In section 1 is actually MCAS. So the change now, and what was put into place, was that it's going to now be the competency determination that is completing the coursework that's certified by the school district that shows that they have those competencies in the standards from 2023 in ELA, math, and science, technology, and engineering. Interestingly enough, and we'll get into it a little bit later, it also says as determined by the board. This is not completely over yet. There's 3 tiers to this for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which is really the Board of Education. So right now, it should just be within the coursework that proves that the students have met that competency. It is a little tricky because what is happening right now, it's like a little football in the air. Every school district is doing different things. So MCAS, which used to unify us, is now being a little bit of a divide because one school right now is presenting to the school committee something different than maybe perhaps what I'm presenting to a school committee, and everybody's just a little bit all over the place. So it is problematic, especially if you have students that are coming from other school districts into your school district and your requirement is different. There were some school districts, and I don't know if, Jay, if you knew this, if they actually voted on it, that we're gonna keep MCAS as their competency determination. So I don't think I'd go down that path, but I don't know if they actually passed it or not.
Well, there was some that actually had that already in their handbook.
Yes,
That was
and
one of
that's
the
what's in ours,
requirements,
too.
right? So the some,
Challenge now, though?
well, no, but some are still going to keep it as an option because you're going to be, it can't be the only thing, but it potentially could be a factor. So if you did that, you wouldn't have to do something else. It needs to be more of like a menu now. It just can't be that. But I do think the Board of Education, the Department of Education is going to put a group together to take a look at this to try to figure out like longer term what we can do to kind of streamline things statewide. But we're all kind of on our own for the spring of '25, so we need to take care of the handful of kids that didn't pass the MCAS. So that's what Linda's trying to address now. And that'll give us a little time to look at the classes of 26 and beyond.
Because I think with the question, it got a little confusing for people, because I think they just thought, okay, no more MCAS, it's over. You still have to have a competency determination. And it's now up to the school district to figure that out, which is what we've been doing. And we have a plan. But again, focus of the class of 2025, and then now we can take some time to move forward past the class of 2025.
I think that opens up, kind of forum shopping
Exactly.
type of thing, where, I don't like what Chelmsford does, so I want to get a degree, my diploma, so I'm going to go to, I don't know, name another district. That's potentially, I don't know, it's hard because you're going to have to move and all that, makes it much more difficult. So there was a standardization there. I think now it puts a greater onus on us to make sure that what we require is really going to meet the standard. The student is going to be able to move on from here and do what they need to do in the world.
Correct.
So that makes it much more difficult, actually.
And I feel like it also just could open up a can of worms in terms of evaluating the rigor of our grading systems, which I think we definitely have the course of studies. We've had that for many, many, many years, but grading sometimes can seem subjective, whereas MCAS, granted it was, because there's a writing component, but it was seen as less subjective, and we have to be careful that we have a way to be sure that we have a uniform system for grading, so that when kids pass a class, it's the same.
Are you sitting in on our meeting today? Sure you right there. So what does this actually mean? So any students right now that passed MCAS, so we'll just gonna talk about the class of 2025 right now, and 2026. Any of the students that passed the MCAS up to the retake, so we had retake sessions in November for ELA and math, and if they've met MCAS, if they passed it, even if they were on an EPP, they earned the CD to graduate. So you'll see the good news there that most of our students passed it. So as of right now, the only classes that could pass MCAS as a CD requirement for the district are the classes of 2025 and 2026, seniors and juniors at Chelmsford High School. Students that did not pass MCAS, the class of 2025, and all future graduating classes can no longer earn a CD through MCAS alone, okay? They cannot do that. We can't put that on them. And they must earn a CD through the new law. And the important pieces of that new law is we have to have language that allows districts to demonstrate that the students have met those requirements. And those requirements, again, are the 2023 standards and the frameworks from DESE for math, ELA, and science. It has to be voted by the board, hence tonight, why you're going to have a vote in front of you, and then shared with all the families and guardians, obviously within their native languages and, posted in a variety of places. But for tonight's purposes, we're only going to be looking for a vote for the class of 2025 because we still need some time to find out what the next steps are going to be and not just rushing into something for future classes because we're not sure how this will all pan out as we go through. Does that make sense? So what is MCAS applicable now? Because I have a lot of people that are like, so why have MCAS? If we don't need it anymore, why have it? Well, we still will have district accountability, right? We're going to receive those accountability ratings from DESE. We do use it for certain course placement. We do use it at the middle school and the high school as like part of like a multi-criteria of, grades, MCAS, we have iReady, IXL tests to help students. Are you going to go into honors? Are you going to stay in a CP class? Are you going to take honors in grade 8? So it's still be part of our larger placement process because it's worked. And then for high school scholarships, MCAS is part of the Abigail Adams Scholarship. That's the money going to state school for at our UMass system. The Koplik Certificate of Mastery Award. And then the Seal by Literacy, MCAS and ELA is the second testing piece for students to earn the Seal by Literacy at Chelmsford High School. So they'd have to take their, we usually use the STAMP test through Avant. So they have to take their language test, and if they pass that piece and ELA MCAS, which they have to have a 486 or above, they would receive the Seal by Literacy. So MCAS is not going away for any of those scholarships or awards. So that's why it's still important. We also have to see how students are doing from an outside governing test that's not created in schools. So the good news is for the class of 2025, there is a total of 8 students that did not meet the competency determination in some combination of ELA, math, and science. 2 of them were move-in students, so it's really 6 of the students. So we have 2 brand-new seniors to Chelmsford High School. Welcome to Chelmsford High School. Normally, they'd be taking the retakes and then receiving their competency determination. So of those 8, it was 6 that did not pass it in ELA, 4 in math, and 6 in science total. And that 6 is really 4 because we have 2 new students. And the math is really 2 because the 2 move-ins are part of those numbers. Okay. Does that make sense?
So the move-ins don't count?
No, so they would count, but what's happening is that, so when you see the 6 for ELA,
right,
really, the students that actually took MCAS in Chelmsford was really 4 students because now 2 more than move-ins because they came from another state. Mm-hmm. So their state.
Those move-ins are still impacted by.
Yeah, they're very much impacted, but the students that actually took the test that didn't, if we didn't have the 2 move-ins, you would see numbers of 4, 2, and 4 up there.
So they were from another state where they didn't have a test, not like
they may
came
have had
from-
their state test,
right.
but MCAS wouldn't
But they didn't
apply.
come from like another city in Mass where
Right.
they couldn't pass.
Yeah,
without a
because
Mass,
then
right?
they
They didn't have MCAS results at all.
correct, they had
Right.
no
Right,
MCAS
that's what I'm
results
saying,
at all.
yeah.
They would have had to have taken the retakes that we had.
I'm curious how this compares, like for the class of 2024, what were the number of students that didn't meet competency after retakes?
I didn't pull those numbers, but I will tell you that we had I think it was three students that walked across the stage but received a certificate of attendance. So I don't know if there were more that just, like, some of our students move out after the fact, but
Yeah.
I'd have to get the full numbers for you.
So it's only a few more students than that are currently in the position of not yet
Correct.
meeting
Yes,
competency.
typically in Chelmsford, our students meet MCAS. We don't have large numbers of students that are not meeting MCAS in this district. That it's going to be the other districts in your cities that are really impacted by this. We typically tend to run around like 7 to 10 students each year.
Yeah.
And
It's a
then with the
concern for those students,
retakes.
but it's a small number.
Correct, and that's with the retakes for the class of 2025. The class of 2026, I have not gone through, we just received those retakes results, and I do know that there was like several students that passed, so those numbers are probably even lower in ELA and math. We just didn't, by the time this presentation went up, we haven't gone through all the retakes because everything's been on the class of 2025. And then the number is higher, and one of the questions I had for the high school, and it's a little, it takes a little time to do this, is there's 24 students. Now, the proficiency level went up higher for the class of 2026, so that could be one reason why there's 24 students. The other question I had for them to look into is how many did we have originally for the class of 2025, and how many of the retakes canceled out that number? So for example, were we at 20? I'm making up numbers right now. Let's just say, was there originally 20 that didn't pass it in the spring of, they would have taken this in the spring of 23. Was it, then they took retakes, and that's why we're at 8? I don't have that answer for you. I do believe that the number is higher for the class of 2026 because the proficiency ratings are higher. So naturally, if you bring it up closer to the ceiling, you're going to have more students. The class of 2027, I wrote it a little differently. So many of those students were on honors biology, and they would have taken that class freshman year. So there was 114 students that actually met the MCAS in science because they took the MCAS with the sophomores in the spring of 2023. Does that make sense? But the remainder of the students, it doesn't matter anyways because they're not eligible. I put total numbers all because none of them are eligible to receive the CD in ELA or math because they're current sophomores right now, and same with the class of 2028. None of them can take, they will take the MCAS, but it's not eligible as their CD requirement. So in the immediate concern, we just want to make sure we have something in place for those 8 students for that class of 2025, and then really look into this a little bit more deeply before we make any final decisions and change handbooks and all of that, because we're going to have to, interestingly enough, you only have one policy that talks about MCAS, so there's not like big policy changes. A lot of the changes are going to go into the program of studies and into the handbooks. That's where we're going to have to see the changes. We're good with those classes? Okay, so we did go through a review process. So DESE does have their 3-part CD approach. So short term, they told us all, make sure the seniors are all set. And then medium term, they're gonna be looking at the rest of the high school students. And then there's a longer term plan, which all students that are not in high school right now, and looking at the legislation and what the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education requires. So there's still more to come. It's not over. So that's why I would not bring forward something that's like, a wholesale change, because I think this is going to change as we go along. And then, obviously, like I said, we've been focusing on the current seniors. So as the administrators, we sat down, so it was the high school administration and then the 3 coordinators and myself that are impacted. And we looked at the language that came through the FAQ through DESE to make sure we all had a common understanding of what was happening. Attended the webinars to see, okay, what additional information is available. And then we looked at all of the current students, like we physically looked at the students, right? Not just, okay, let's just pull off their numbers. Let's pull up all the information through a panorama, look at the SIS, who are these students, what's happening, let's get some more details. So, and we did look at what other districts were doing. So one of the interesting things that came up is we've been here before, boys and girls, because we had COVID and students couldn't take the MCAS. So what did we do then? And how are our students doing? And they're doing just fine. So we actually looked at all of the COVID protocols to see how will this help us moving forward, which was extremely helpful. If we're going to talk about COVID, that's one good thing that came from it. We have some back language to go back. So there was a lot of different languages around the waivers, around MCAS. So in looking at all of them, we just did our own adapted version of it, like adding words like full year credit, because that was not in the DESE language, and making sure that they were appropriate curriculum frameworks and adequate classes. So we came up, taking that language as our framework, we came up with the language just for this class, requiring a vote tonight, that would allow us to apply our own competency determination, something we feel comfortable with for these 8 students. And the 2 students that are new to the district, we end up doing like an alignment document for what courses they took compared to our courses. And this is the language that we were looking to move forward just for the class of 2025 for this year. And we went through, so DESE during that COVID time gave us a list of approved courses that would apply towards the waiver back when COVID was happening so that we could graduate students. And we aligned it to our DESE course codes. So that's the column that you see on the left. That is the course code that we use in our district. DESE has a name for the class. I'm telling you the Chelmsford High School name for the class. And that does it meet the CD requirement? And then we decided that they did. So for ELA, though, you would need to pass both English and 9 and 10. So 9 and 10 is one of our special ed courses that meets the DESE course code. And the English 9 CP and honors is what you would see the majority of our other students in classes, which meets the same DESE code. And then for for ESL, which was important, so we have beginning, intermediate, and advanced. It depends on a student's reader level. And then we also have a class called ESL Skills that meets the DESE course code. We use the same course code when we report to the state on our classes, which meets that code. And we were saying, yes, that meets that requirement. And we'll review the transcript of the students that came in from the other states to meet those codes.
I'm going to ask a question I think is just a quick answer. I saw that the language up above the recommendation said, and has demonstrated competency in that subject. Does demonstrating competency for our purposes right now mean passing the course? Okay.
It does. And then math has something similar yet different because they have algebra and geometry. If they're in the general math class for 9 and 10, they have to pass both of them. And they would have to pass both algebra and geometry. Algebra 1 even being for like if they took it in 8th grade, because some of those students might be in algebra 2 because they were in 8th grade, they took algebra 1. And then for science, it was the 3 lab classes plus our Project Lead the Way Introduction to Engineering Design. And those are what DESE has for course codes, course names, and I'm giving you the equivalent that's in our program of studies, and all of those meet that. So what do we do now? So we have to apply these same CD requirements for the class of 2025. We're going to review their transcripts, which we did. We actually have this, like I have a spreadsheet of these students, and I can tell you exactly what course they've taken, if they've met it, and I can tell you all of them have met it, which is actually the good news here. We don't have one of them that has not. And we would issue the diplomas, and we would, we've also had 2 former students contact us already to receive their diplomas, because what we're doing for the class of 2025, we'd like to apply that to class of 2024 and
I was going to say, what's the look back? I mean, how
we
many?
have to go back to 2003? If.
2003.
Yeah, but
If the students request
if the students
Right,
request
right,
it,
right.
a lot of them went and they did some high school equivalency. The earliest we've heard from, so the 2, one was from last year and one was from 2016. I was like, okay, so that's fine. We have to go back into their transcript and make sure everything's all set, but we would issue them a diploma. But we are supposed to go as back as far as 2003.
But I mean, it sounds like we're in good shape. We have all the coursework in place. It was just a matter of putting the language in and being sure that we have standard measure of defining it, but we're in good shape to.
We're in good shape to put in this plan. I think there's more work to do.
Sure.
Right.
Oh, I understand there's work to be
It's
done,
funny you brought up the
but-
grading practices, because that is like
Yeah.
one of the biggest things up there.
That's a big philosophical piece too. But in terms of what Chelmsford High School offers, we offer what the state says students need.
And
So-
And in the short term, it sounds like we're in a good position if it's looking like those 8 students who didn't meet their competency determination through MCAS will meet it through the proposed shift.
So obviously, we're going to continue to focus on this class, review additional guidance that come in. We're going to investigate what to do about the CD requirement moving forward, because if you look at the language closely, you should have something in addition to. We're lucky that we do follow the Mass Core. You believe it or not, many high schools don't. You would think that they would, and I just assume they did, but a lot of high schools have not adopted the Mass Core as their requirements. And then based on what we do moving forward, so I would not recommend going in and changing all of our current documents, but what we decided to do moving forward for 2026, we're going to have to change our handbooks and our program of studies because the competency determination is everywhere. I did go through the school committee policies, and it's only mentioned once, and I'll get you the policy. It's only mentioned once in a policy, and it's not even really talking about, like, we are saying it has to be the competency determination, it's wrapped up into another piece. And then obviously make sure that this is communicated with everybody, including the guidance counselors that are monitoring these students, academics as they're going through, parents, because people want to know what's going to happen. And I know we've been doing questions as we go along, but we can ask more questions. And then I'm going to be looking for a vote.
And the vote, just to get clear, is to potentially adopt the recommended shift for the class of 2025 specifically.
Yes.
Or would it be 2025 and prior court classes?
I don't know if they really have to,
You'd probably have to have some standard. I don't think it would hurt.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt because the students are no longer students with us, so it's.
Right.
But they have transcripts to look at, so you're still being
Correct.
the same kind of review.
Yeah. That would be my sense, would be since if there's already students asking from prior classes, it would probably be important to have a policy in place that would impact them.
It's not going to hurt.
Okay.
Do that.
But we're really just looking at this one page with the language requiring a vote, is what you're asking for today.
The language, and then those will be the classes that we're going
Yes.
to use
Yeah.
for those 3 content areas.
Okay, so you want to include prior classes
Prior
It's
classes.
2025 and before, or
and
Yeah,
prior
so we-
classes?
prior class, yeah,
Okay,
2025 and earlier.
Yes.
and earlier, prior, before, earlier.
and prior classes
Yeah.
Yeah.
dating back to 2003?
No, I think if you say in earlier or before,
Yeah.
we can apply it.
Because prior to
everybody.
2003, there wouldn't be students who had not, that would be eligible to
My
ask.
sense is because I think we would have heard from a lot more people. I mean, there could be a few more that show
that
up,
the
but a
first
lot
year it
of
was
these students
required?
have met their
Okay.
competency, like their high school equivalency in different ways, or they're not planning on doing it.
Okay,
Yeah, because my husband graduated the year before.
and earlier classes. All right,
All right, everybody good? Any questions before we make a motion? All right,
okay. I move that the school committee, that we approve the adoption of the updated competency determination language for the class of 2025 and earlier classes, which includes the identification of specific coursework in ELA, math, and science /technology/engineering that meet the 2023 standards as the graduation requirement in accordance with the new law.
I second.
okay. All right, any other discussion on this? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
To be continued.
To be
Thank you.
continued.
I'll let the high school know.
Great,
Great, thank you for doing
all
that,
right,
Joe.
thank you.
Next up this evening is an update for you on some of the information that was requested around the use of cell phones, and policies and procedures and things like that we have. So I took a little time over the holiday break to kind of cull through all the different documents we have in the school department. It was a relatively quick search of actual, good night.
Have a
It
good
was an
night.
actual quick search of policies because ironically, we don't have any actual policies that pertain to cell phone use at all. There was just one reference in the policies, and it actually was directed at staff as opposed to students. So I did include what was written there for you. And then when I went through, another document was the CPS Staff Empowered Digital Use Guidelines. These were revised this past summer. Again, they had the same reference to just staff, obviously, but no students in that one. The overall student handbook for the 24-25 school year has a paragraph pertaining to phone use, and I incorporated that at the bottom of the paragraph. I'll just read it for the viewing audience. It says, if students need to contact home, they should see their teacher or administrator to receive permission to use the phone in the classroom or office. Conversely, if a parent needs to speak with a student, the parent should call the school office. All cell phones should be off while in school unless in use for instructional purposes. Any student using a cell phone for non-instructional purposes while school is in session will have the cell phone confiscated by administration. The first offense will lead to a warning, and the administrator will return the phone to the student at the end of the day. Second, subsequent offenses will result in the phone being returned only to the parent or further disciplinary actions. So that's in our kind of K-12 global student handbook. And then the high school addendum, that's an additional handbook that we have, just pertains more to 9 through 12 students, also had 2 references to cell phone use in a section that dealt with consequences that were a little bit different. So instead of writing that all out, I just attached it as Appendix C for you. And then I just had a general conversation early on with the principals to kind of get a sense of exactly what was going on. And elementary, so K to 4, the 4 elementary schools, really didn't find or report that cell phone use by students was really significant at the elementary level at all, which kind of makes sense. Most kids do not have cell phones. Ironically, they were having a little bit of trouble with the smart watches that the kids now wear, and I really didn't. Yeah, I didn't really think of that. But so they've been having more issues along those lines. But whenever a cell phone or the smartwatch comes up, the students have been cooperative, parents have been cooperative, so they really haven't had any significant issues at the elementary level.
But excuse me, I think we're going to see an uptick in that. I know many fourth grade students who received cell phones for Christmas this year. So I think there's going to be a big uptick in that.
Fourth going to fifth is usually a year when you start to see them because they're getting ready for middle school.
So this may not be a problem this school year, but I think in a couple of years, they may see a big increase of fourth graders in particular.
Yeah, and my first grade son told me, quote, some of my classmates have become zombies because they're always staring at their smart watches until the teachers tell them not to. So I do think that there are issues, and he said that on his own to me, so I was like, oh boy.
At the middle school level, 5th and 6th, obviously, that is when students start to get more kind of across the board cell phone use. At the 7th and 8th grade level, most kids would have access to a cell phone during the day. Both schools have a policy where your phone is just supposed to be off, ideally left in a locker at the time, and they do have the consequences. And I provided with you just some of the messaging that the different schools have given out. But basically, keep your phone in your locker, keep it powered off for the day. First time is a warning, you take it away, you get it back at the end of the day. Next time, your parent has to come in and get it. After that, there would be more consequences, but both schools didn't report it as significant as far as kids or families not cooperating with them. And then similar at the high school as well. They have a policy where, again, just phone should be off. Phone should be in your bag. A lot of the rooms when you walk in kind of have the little telephone hanging racks now. You can certainly power off your phone and leave it in the rack. And that's what they've been doing at the high school. So I wanted to kind of provide this as an opportunity to you just to kind of have everything we have on file with related to either policies, the procedures, what the communications have been. And again, I worked on this over the break, so I'm going to be sharing this with school administration the next time we meet. I haven't circled back around with them to show them what we've been able to come up with. But I wanted to at least share with you what I had so far as what was in writing, as far as policy and procedure for the district level goes.
Yeah, I appreciate your gathering this. This is exactly the information I was hoping to see. Something I am thinking about, and I'm sensitive to the fact we have a long agenda tonight, so this may be something to postpone further discussion of until maybe you hear more anecdotally from what educators want to see and until we have a chance to dive in on maybe a less crowded meeting. But I would love to have a conversation about ensuring that ideally, we're really thinking about this in a consistent K-12 way and making sure there's alignment in terms of consequences for violations, that we're clear on what the violations are. Consider including smart watches and other smart devices in the conversation, particularly as we're thinking about elementary school, I have heard from elementary school educators and parents that it's getting to be quite a big issue at that age, because in part there isn't district-wide guidance, and the schools haven't previously needed or felt that they needed to. So anyway, I would love to think about if there's a space for, I don't think it's a dramatic shift in what's already sort of out there, but just making sure that we can put out the kind of guidelines that could help create consistency from school to school and more predictability for parents, students, and educators.
One of the things that actually came up that I really didn't think about ahead of time, saying on the smartwatch piece, and I think one of the schools kind of just folded it into their messaging to parents because the handbook talks about phones, but it doesn't actually say smartwatches. But they took the step to say these are equally distracting, you shouldn't be those either. But when we go to put our handbooks together for the year, like that's something to certainly include. And I'm sure there's going to be some other new technology that comes out within a couple of years that we'll have to go back and add to. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to bring this back because I do want to just talk to the admin and kind of let them know what we found, that generally there does seem to be some pretty consistency in at least the messaging and how it's happening. I can ask, just for their feedback as far as if they think, kind of firming up the handbook a little bit would be helpful. If maybe some kind of district-wide messaging would be helpful, even by level, so that, all, say, 4 elementary schools are receiving the same messaging. I can kind of get their feedback for you, and if you want to put it on for like another discussion or something, we certainly could do that some night when we have a light agenda, and talk about where to go with it.
I'd also love if you could get feedback from them on one thing that I think would come down to, I think it would be a relatively small budget item, but it would be a budget item, is whether there would be interest in what I know some districts have done in consistently having a space in each classroom for students to, at the middle and high schools, for students to drop off their cell phones as they enter and pick up as they leave, rather than having it be, kind of hidden in the kids' bags or lockers or whatever. I know lockers are problematic at Parker. Students can't lock their lockers, right? So they don't want to put them there and throughout the day. So I guess thinking about a space that is, wondering if the educators would like there to be sort of a phone storage spot, like I know, say, Lowell High School is using right now.
Yeah, I can ask for feedback on that and bring that to the conversation when we go back to it.
Any other questions or comments on this?
So we don't have an actual policy.
No, we have a handbook policy.
The
We don't have
handbook,
a
you
school
approve the
committee.
handbook.
Right,
Committee one.
and this handbook policy applies to everybody, but sometimes the parents don't read the handbook.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, most parents are actually going to read the handbook before they're going to go looking at what the school committee policy is. So I think the key document to have it in is the actual handbook. So it is in the handbook. I think it's a matter of just enforcement, consistency across the board in messaging. But when we go to do our handbook updates this summer, again, like the smartwatch thing was a good catch. So that'd be something good to add. We can look around to see what other communities, maybe if they have something else we haven't thought of yet, that's in there, we can do that. But I'd be more concerned about it being in the handbook as opposed to the policy, just because, again, people aren't normally jumping on the website to see what the policy is.
It's a new thing now, like smart glasses, you get
Glasses, yeah.
little display screen in your glass.
There's gonna be other.
Take that test, like, hey.
I think there is, I definitely think there's more to discuss and find out, and I appreciate the info we have so far. I do know that there has been chatter on MASC Fora about this, about what different districts have for policies around cell phone use, so it may be something that on our end, the school committee's end, we could look and see what some districts that may be similar to our size districts are doing in terms of policies, because it might be helpful to review those and make sure there's not something we're not thinking about, and that could be an issue if we don't look at policies.
As I was going to say, the handbook, though, it is pretty clear.
Yep.
Cell phones should be off, they should be put away, and any student found using the cell phone while in session will have that phone call confiscated. So it's there, it's just a matter of whether it's really uniformly adhered to or not.
Yeah, I think my big question mark is if we need to be clear about what we mean by away. Because is that in the student's own possession in their backpacks? Is it in a place? Is it not? Do we need to be consistent around that? And I don't know what the answer is right now, but that's my question mark, I guess.
Right?
That can be a low-tech solution, though. It doesn't have to be these fancy boxes that get locked.
True.
It can literally be a shoe bag on the back of a door. I mean,
Yeah, for sure. I've seen that to
Well,
great
that's
success.
what the high school's using.
that's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be a
And
big
it
high-tech.
seems to work
solution.
fine. Yeah.
Yep.
When the digital implants come out, we don't want to be here.
I
That's
don't think
it,
I'll be.
okay?
But I at least, I had pulled that all together over the break, so I just wanted to at least
Thank
get
you.
that to
Thank you for
you.
doing that.
So you have
Yeah.
everything together.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to ask Joanna to share the second quarter financials with us.
Thank you. In your packet, you have a 3-page memo talking about the variances from the operating budget for fiscal 2025. You have the actual year-to-date budget report. You have the grant and revolving fund summary, and then you have the summary of student activity accounts for the high school, McCarthy, and Parker Middle School. So first, we'll just talk about the memo from our fiscal 2025 operating budget. It's $73,880,000. Not too much has changed since the report that I gave in October. Because remember, about 80% of our budget is labor, and we know our labor variance is pretty much out of the gate. They have, some of the variances have grown a little more favorable, primarily because the unpaid leaves, approved unpaid leaves of absences are really starting to become more apparent in the school year as, teachers need to take that time off. So the classroom teachers, that category is favorable by $265,000. Again, for the same reasons as reported last quarter, hiring people at less than Master Step 3 and approved unpaid leaves of absences. And the same is true in the specialist teachers category. That is favorable by $204,000. A new variance that kind of became more apparent in the second quarter is in the medical and health services category. I'm anticipating that to be favorable by $84,000 for the year, primarily because 2 of the items we budgeted in the local budget were eligible for the ESSER 3 grant, which is now fully expended. Those were the contracted mental health services for Care Solace and Cartwheel. And then we had also hired a RN at a little less than what was budgeted. The employee separation cost is still favorable. That was the retirement incentive. We just paid those out in January, so it's not in this report. But I anticipate that category to remain favorable by $94,000 in fiscal '25. The out-of-district tuitions, it's unfavorable on this report because we record all of the tuitions in this account and then take the offsets at the end of the year to the circuit breaker fund. So another way we've been presenting this is just to look at our out-of-district tuitions. We budgeted $6.9 million of tuitions. We said our circuit breaker offset was going to be $2.5 million. A credit from Valley Collaborative for $300,000. So the net amount on the local budget is $4.1 million. So that's what the budget was when we set it last February. If you go to the last page of the memo, this is where special ed tuitions are going to be, well, we think they're going to be this year. We prepaid $1.725 million of fiscal year '25 tuitions in fiscal '24 because we had some favorable variances in '24. We've encumbered $5.4 million, so we're at $7.1 million. So that's a little higher than the $6.9 we originally thought way back a year ago when we did the 25 budget. We know the offset is going to be just a tiny bit higher on 2.505 million to circuit breaker. We got a little extra funds there. We know the Valley Collaborative credit is going to be 294,216. And then in the end, we think this category, when you back out the prepaid tuitions again, is going to be favorable by 1.52 million. It's primarily linked to prepaying tuitions last year. So the committee will bring forth recommendations when I do my projection for this year. It looks like we will have an opportunity to possibly prepay fiscal year 26 tuitions in 25 if this variance holds. And then the last section is the school choice revolving fund. We used to use this as an offset to special ed tuitions. We're really not doing that this year at all. So, but I'm still just reporting on the fund. We're using it for the one-to-one computer initiatives. So I anticipate that balance to be at the end of the year about 2.8 million in the school choice fund. Any questions on the local operating budget?
Any questions? I had two. First one is, I see the special ed tuitions are up about, 100, 200,000.
Yes.
Is it we new students move into the district, or is it their fees are higher than we expected? What's kind of driving that?
In talking with Amy, it is some move-ins.
Okay.
So just a reminder on the move-in law. So if someone's at a collaborative and they move into your district, you take on that financial responsibility right away. If they're at a private placement, you don't take on that financial responsibility because you couldn't really budget for it, and it's usually a big number. So that number takes into effect in April. So Amy's always waiting until April 1st on her move-in number. She kind of wishes her fiscal 26 budget would be due after that, but it's not possible. So it's primarily move-ins, but again, at a collaborative level. And then if a student, one of our existing students had to be placed out of district at a private placement. So those are the two main reasons.
Okay, and the other question is kind of in a similar vein. We have good favorables. Are there any things we're concerned with, any accounts that are looking in the other direction that we need to be concerned with going forward?
The only one, and it's kind of apparent, is special ed transportation. But it's still kind of early. That could, and you don't know what's going to happen with your homeless transportation, and you don't know what's going to happen with your foster transportation. So those are really tough to forecast.
Okay.
But
Utilities?
we do have our plan would be, if that category goes over, we would likely recommend that we take a larger offset to the regular education big buses, because we have that revolving fund that's sitting at about 900,000. So we could take a bigger offset for the big buses, and then that category for special ed would be the offset to regular ed to the revolving fund buses would then make room for the going over if we go over and foster homeless or special ed transportation. And all those, now I'm getting in the weeds, but all those are not net school spending eligible. So you kind of, that category, that's how I kind of look at it, to try to solve the problem within that category if you can.
And utilities are good until this week when it's 2 degrees out?
Yeah, so far utilities are okay. We're also going to see in the grant, once we get to grant and revolving fund, I haven't taken the offset to E-rate yet. So that one of the utilities that helps fund is telephone, internet, that kind of thing. So we'll see that favorableness too.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one is the 2-page grant and revolving fund summary. So the top portion are pretty much the entitlement grants. The middle portion is some of the other funds and the private grants. And then the last page are the revolving funds.
Question on any of these?
For me.
We can't ask questions about ESSER grants anymore. We're all done.
We're all done. Thank you. Yeah,
Assessors and
September
operas and-
30th.
Yeah.
All done.
All right, so we good?
Yep.
All right,
Okay,
excellent.
couple of motions.
I don't think we
It's just
no.
kind of a report, and then just the student activity
right?
I
accounts.
thought there were some transfers.
Budget transfers.
Yeah,
That's
right, we'll do those after,
that's
yeah.
the next category, but then just a reminder, the student activity account balances.
Oh,
are
you
there
wanna go
too.
through those,
The high
okay.
school's at 215,000.
Good night.
Right.
Good night. The McCarthy is at almost 38,000, and the Parker is at 69,000. And then there's all the little clubs beneath them.
Any questions on student activity accounts? Good,
Okay.
great.
Thanks, Joanna.
Thank you, John.
So yes, the next item, number 8, is just recommendation for a couple of smaller budget transfers.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So just two. The first budget transfer is for $8,280 in the software category, moving from the instructional software into the administrative type software. And Bill learned very recently that Microsoft Office is no longer going to be at no cost to school districts. So he really didn't budget for that in the admin software category. Do you want me to stop or you want me
So
to?
let's do one at a time.
Yep.
So you want to do a
That's
motion on that?
incredible.
No, we didn't see that one coming. They've always been free, so we didn't see that one happen.
It's interesting. I recommend the school, I'm going to recommend that we vote to approve this fiscal 2025 local operating budget transfer for the $8,280 from instructional software account to the administrative software account as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions on this transfer? All right, we have to do a roll call. Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And the other one?
Thank you. And then the last one is, this budget transfer is for $6,721 to the capital land and building account. This is where we are finishing up this high school art room and science lab renovations. And the retirement sick leave buyback account is favorable. We know that's going to be favorable by $94,000, so that's where I'm recommending the funds come from.
Okay. So I move that we vote to approve this FY 2025 local operating budget transfer for $6,721 from the retirement/sick buyback account to the local capital land and building account as presented.
I'll second.
Any questions? Is this the end on these two projects? They done?
I think so.
Done? Yeah.
We think so. It's been in punch list mode for
Yeah,
quite some
yeah.
time. Little things just come up as you're closing on a project, but the art rooms are officially done at this point,
Okay.
and the science lab, I do believe, is as well. So
Okay.
these little fine things straggled in, but no, we should be done.
Okay, great. All right, any other questions? Okay, Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
4-0.
A big thank you to Joanna, always.
Always.
Thank you, Joanna. Next item on the agenda, number 9, is just a little update for you, more verbally, just on the budget preparation. So I've been working hard with Joanna and the staff of the business office to put the recommended budget together for next year. That's going to be the fiscal 26 budget, which will start on July 1st. We are still on target to present at our next school committee meeting, which is the first meeting in February. The town manager's budget usually comes out the last week in January because they're going to have a special town meeting that Monday night. That's going to get kicked 1 week, so the select board is going to meet the following Monday, and he's going to present his budget then. I've had a couple of discussions in a meeting with him to talk about kind of where we're at budgeting-wise. We're waiting on a couple of key elements. A lot of things will come into place this week. So last week, we kind of get a little sense of what might be happening from the governor's State of the Union address or the State of the Commonwealth address. She didn't get as specific as she sometimes does, so honestly, that wasn't that helpful to me. But tomorrow is when the governor's budget by statute has to come out. So we will see the governor's budget come out tomorrow, and that'll give us some high-level detail about what will be happening with local aid. So the couple of key numbers that I'm going to be looking at is the unrestricted general local aid is the kind of the big number for the town revenue. Chapter 70 is obviously a big number for the school revenue. And then we'll also get an indication for us, what's important is the circuit breaker and where is the state going to be funding the circuit breaker amount. So the budget will come out at some point tomorrow and we'll get just a ballpark idea of what those two bigger numbers are, Chapter 70 and the unrestricted local aid. Then within about 24 hours, so I imagine coming into work on Thursday, we'll have what they call the cherry sheets. So the cherry sheets will actually show you what the actual allocations to the town are for all the different revenues and what the offsets are on the expense side, because you do have to kind of go a little deeper and look at like school choice. You have to take a look at charter school reimbursements, things along those lines. So by Thursday afternoon, I'll have a better sense of where we're at. And Paul and I agreed to talk on Friday, and then we carved out some time on Monday to sit down and really kind of see where we're at overall, budget-wise. So again, I will shoot you an update probably early next week, just to give you a sense of where we're landing. I'm making good progress on budgeting overall. We do know that fiscal 26, and I just wanted to kind of flag for you, I think 27 are going to be tight years. We have been actually adding to the school budget for the last 2 or 3 years. We've really done some good investing, I think, in special education programming, a lot of different things that align with our strategic plan. I think this is going to be a little bit of a leaner year, 26 and 27, but we'll obviously do what we need to do to keep our momentum on the programs and services we put in place. The kids are going to be there, the staff are going to be there, regardless of what happens budgeting-wise. So we're working to really have this be as least impactful on classrooms and schools as possible. So overall, I'm fairly happy with where we're at. We are going to be looking to maximize revenue wherever we can. So when it comes to circuit breaker, using different offsets that we have to make the budget work for next year, we'll be doing that. And all signs at this point in time indicate that I'll have the recommended budget to you for that first meeting in February. And we'll also have an idea where Paul is at with the town, and hopefully we can have a consensus budget, something that the two of us can agree on. And like I said, after we have probably Monday, even into Tuesday next week to work that through, I'll shoot you an email just to give you a sense of where we're at, but then plan on having that recommendation at the first meeting in February.
Any questions? Are we still approaching it with the thought that we're going to have, based on what you originally pictured, are we going to have to cut that back down based on what came out of the tri-board meeting?
Well, our level service budget, which includes all the staff, program, services we're currently offering now next year, with an addition, with a set aside basically for contract negotiations, is that $3.5 million increase that we were talking about. That didn't change. What we're hoping is going to change is being able to utilize a little bit more circuit breaker funding for special education than we normally do. That's a revenue offset. And we got a little extra circuit breaker money this year than last, so you'll see an adjustment there. I'll be curious to see if we get any indication of what's going to happen with circuit breaker for next year. And we're not going to get the actual dollar amount, but we're just going to get a sense of whether the governor is proposing fully funding circuit breaker. Are they proposing circuit breaker tuition and transportation? Because we got full tuition, but we only got a portion of transportation. So those are numbers I just need to kind of wrap my head around a little bit when I see it. But certainly as we're going through this process, I don't want to forecast too much tonight. It's going to be lean, but those numbers didn't change. We're just hoping that we're going to be benefited by some of the extra revenue that we're going to be able to allocate to it, and being a little bit tighter when we're doing forecasting for staff and replacement of staff and things along those lines. We do have a handful of retirements that are going to help us. Typically, we always see a positive offset with that, but we'll make it work.
I just want to put the word out to anyone who's listening, residents who you talk about trying to save some money by looking at staffing. And I just hope people will be really supportive of the amount of money we really need, because while we may be able to eliminate some positions if someone happens to retire, that's not really ideal. So I just want the public to know that some of these programs are essential and that staffing makes a huge difference in how well our schools do. So as much as possible, support how much money we need for our schools.
Sue brings a very important point. The other thing I think is very important for us to know is what is happening, truly happening with that Princeton project, because every time I pass by, and I don't know if everybody's had a chance to drive by there lately, but it looks like it is going to have a big impact on us. And so it would be very important to us to know what's happening for this coming year. The other thing I think we have to have an answer to is we have some allocation of money in that contract
I am looking into that for you.
to make sure when we're going to get that. Because if it's in the middle of next year,
Right.
so I think that's going to be a big thing.
Yeah, and I haven't been able to confirm this, but anecdotally, what I'm hearing is that the development is actually on track to open, that it could be as early as between April and June when they actually start to, not everything, but when they have phases where they start to lease out properties. So we definitely could see some impact in the fall for that.
Yeah. And one concern I have is I think the housing crisis has gotten worse, not better, since that development was basically approved. And as a result, and I remember that we were given numbers that applied only to 2-bedroom units and 3 bedrooms and so on, none for 1-bedroom units. And in fact, when our folks came in and presented to us on historically what's going to happen or going forward in the study that was done about the number of students that could come into our district, they talked about the fact that they don't consider the 1-bedrooms either. But I think that what's happening is people are having to use those 1-bedrooms for families, and because they don't have the money available, period. So that has a pretty big impact on us going forward.
Made assumptions that may not have been correct, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And we'll be able to monitor it closely, and we'll be able to see, because we'll know the new addresses, but we'll be able to track anyone registering from that complex to see when they're actually coming into the district. So
That's
we'll
great.
at least be able to identify who they are.
Great,
Thank you for that.
Yeah, just a quick update for you.
thank you.
Next on the agenda this evening, we're looking for approval of a contract for on-call engineering services. Do you want me to give a little background, and then you can do the specifics? All right. So one of the things that's been coming into play quite a bit over the last couple of years, particularly with internal projects that we fund ourselves through like the one-time funding. So in the springtime, when I bring forward recommendations for our own kind of capital projects, we need the assistance of like an engineering firm to really go and look at a job to help us put bid specifications together, sometimes to come up with stamped drawings that will then get through permitting and things along those lines. So we don't have one company that we call when that comes up. We usually have to kind of shop a job around to a couple of different places and see who's available. And it's not really time-wise economical. Sometimes I think we'd be better served if we actually had a relationship with the contractor that we just call when we have a number of projects. So a lot of communities actually have these, what they call on-call engineering service contracts. It's a blanket contract. We're not committing a specific dollar amount now, but we're doing a blanket over 3 years of up to $200,000. It would still be project specific, but we would actually have a contract with the firm. So when we're doing the build out of like the secure entryway at McCarthy, like what we would do, because we know now we have actually got 6 that we're going to be trying to work on this spring, we would call our firm, and the firm would actually put together the documents for us. They'd come out, they'd have to give us a quote for that particular project, but we'd already have a contract with them, we already have agreed upon fees, and they would come out and actually do their work for us. We wouldn't be shopping around project by project. We'll have a relationship with someone. We've got that's kind of on the agenda. We've got the doorway project at the high school, where we want to add the doorway to the stairwell. Again, this is a firm that would come in and actually put together the bid specs for us and all those kind of things. So we went out, we issued a request for proposals. Joanna conducted that, and she can kind of walk you through what happened. We ultimately interviewed candidates, and we selected a firm that we would like to contract with. And again, we're still going to need to allocate the funding to the projects. That's going to be a piece of this. We don't have that yet, but we're going to have a contract in place for the up to $200,000 over 3 years to be able to contract with one particular firm to do all of our bid specifications, drawings, administration of the work if we need it on site. So that's what this is tonight. But do you want to maybe talk a little bit about the procurement process?
Sure. So the way we went about requesting this information is way back in September, we put out the RFP and we advertised. And then we got 20 requests for the packet. And 4 of those 20 sent in proposals. That's a kind of a small number, so we invited all 4 in to talk to them, and they could give a presentation, and our committee could have a little Q&A. And we did that from mid-October to mid-December. And then we selected NV5 Planning and Design. And they happened to be not too far away over in Andover. And as the superintendent said, it'll be a 3-year contract of up to $200,000 total. And in your packet is this summary, the contract that our legal firm helped us with, and then the RFP that went out in September, and that firm's response.
Questions?
Is there a minimum amount required to be spent in order for the contract to, okay. So it's only as needed.
It's as needed.
That's right.
To go to and
Yep,
Basically.
on call, right? On-call engineering.
And how will this be accounted for in the budget going forward? Now,
Well, so, let's just take a look at the secure entries that we're gonna do this year. So when we put that together, we have an allocation for someone to write the bid specifications for us and to provide the stamped drawings. We're just not gonna have to shop that around, put out a little mini RFP at the time. That money will just be actually part of the 200,000 here. So, that's where the funding is gonna come from. It's already gonna be allocated to the projects. We're just gonna now contract with this one company to do the work, as opposed to having a shop.
because that's coming through capital.
Yeah, we've kind of pre-done this, or like this spring, if we have extra one-time money and we do a project on our own, there'll be an actual set aside in that project. There always is, for someone to prepare the bid documents and advertisements and things like
So it
that.
won't have to become a new budget item going forward, like for next year
No,
or
it's
the
not,
year after?
it's not a budget item
Okay.
in our budget.
Okay.
It's always gonna be tied to a capital project. And there's just always a piece that goes to some firm to do this. We've gone through the process ahead of time, and we've selected the firm we're gonna work with, so we would just always go to that firm.
Makes
It
sense.
just streamlines the process for us.
Do we use combis to get proposals?
We advertise in combis. The proposals, we had them come here to this building by
Yeah.
a certain date and time. We don't have them upload in there or anything.
I'm just curious, you mentioned 4 wasn't that many. I'm curious if this is less than we usually get for similar needs, or was that just like a reasonable amount?
I think 4 is, we're fortunate to have 4. We don't go out that often for RFPs.
Okay.
But when you get 20 requests for the package, that was a really good response.
Yeah.
And you would have hoped that more of the 20 would have submitted. But we're happy that 4 took the time to.
Yeah, I'm curious how many, because the requests for the packets could come from agencies that ultimately decide that they want to prioritize only guaranteed money or larger projects, right? Like in theory, would they, I guess I'm just curious, is it new for us to have sort of an established relationship like this that's not attached to a specific project? Or is that typically how we do it?
This is the first for us. We don't have this.
We don't have
So
this
the
previously.
vendors who are providing proposals, they don't have a track record to going out with us either.
Mm-hmm.
So to them, this could be $0 or it could be $200,000.
That's what I was wondering, so I'm wondering if that's what the difference was between, oh, let's see if I'm interested, and then only 4 ultimately applying. But 4 is still a good amount to be choosy.
No, and they were relatively, I think 3 out of the 4 were relatively local too. What was interesting is when they came in for the interviews, one of the firms in particular talked about how they have this contract, but they honestly don't get used a lot. So I could see them being a little disappointed going through the whole process, getting a contract in place, and it's only an up to amount. So if they're not getting a bang for their buck out of it, they're not getting the service, maybe they don't put the effort in the next time. But I'm wondering if we do, and we now have a good relationship with someone and they can see a track record of us spending the $200,000 over 3 years, maybe we'll be more attractive the next time around. But it's going to give us consistency in, I think, kind of quality, someone who's really going to get to know us, and timeliness also, like we're going to be able to, kind of move quickly on a project as opposed to having to have the month to 2 month lead time of getting quotes and proposals on every single project.
Yeah, separate RFPs for every single project would be a lot.
Yeah, so this is going to be, I think, very helpful to us.
Great, anything else? Other questions? Okay, take a motion.
I move that we vote to enter into a 3-year contract with NVS Planning and Design, Inc., as proposed, to provide on-call engineering consultant services.
I'll second that.
Just to clarify, it's NV5, right? It's NV5.
Oh, I forgot the 5. NV, it looked like an S.
It does look like an
Five.
S, I agree.
Okay, sorry. NV5.
NV5. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second, we have a correction. Any other questions? All right, Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0.
Next, Joanna, do you want to walk them through the MOU for the foster care?
Well, Joanna's got a busy night.
She does.
Yeah.
Okay.
In your packet is a request to have our foster care transportation have the opportunity to request a partial reimbursement through a federal ESSA funding model. And this could reimburse possibly 20% of our foster care transportation costs in a school year. But in order to apply for this funding, you have to have a memorandum of understanding between your school district and these 4 parties involved in this funding. And this MOU has to go before your town meeting. So this request is really asking this body to bring this forward to town meeting in April. And then the MOU is attached. And then if town meeting agrees with this, then we send the contract back to this ESSA group, and then they get the other signatures between the other 3 parties, DESE, DCF, and Executive Office of Health and Human Services. And then once that MOU is in place, the following year, so it'd be fiscal 26, at the end of 26, I can then submit our foster care transportation costs and see if we are eligible for any reimbursement.
Any questions?
So it's to get money back. Why do you have to get it approved? Just, that's what the law says.
That for this particular.
It's not
ESSA
costing the
federal-
town anything. It's going to bring money back in.
Yeah, it's a little strange. I've never seen this before, but when the group approached us about this, if you want to be able to qualify for this, you almost have to go through this pre-approval process and actually have it be, it's almost like setting up like a special account to be able to do this. So, but you have to only do it once. But if we do have the MOU approved and everyone signs off on it, then we're not going to have to do this every year. But any year that the funds are available for the foster reimbursement, Joanna's going to be able to apply, and we're potentially going to get money. So there's really no downside to this. Worst case scenario, if there's no funds available, we're not going to get any money. But if we do qualify for anything in a given year, we can apply for it and get some reimbursement. So there's no downside to it. It's just more of a procedural thing. I did mention it to the town manager. He's fine with it.
And there's
So,
we have plenty of time to get this on the,
yeah, well, I told them we would take action tonight just to make sure you'd support this. And then if you do, I'll forward this over to him and he'll include it as a warrant article in the spring. And then we'll just be there to support it and answer any questions that may come up. But it's kind of a no-brainer. It's just potentially giving us money. We just have to go through the process to get everything in line.
Is this a new program, or is this?
I hadn't heard of it before. I don't know.
It's not that new. It's been around for a few years. I think what happened was, for homeless transportation, there's a little bit of reimbursement from the state. And then districts were asking, well, is there any opportunity for foster care transportation? And then DESE did some digging to see, is there any way we could get any money? And they found it would be eligible under this federal ESSER funding, which I think DCF was aware and helped say, hey, there might be some funding there, because they obviously have more of these type of costs in their regular budgeting. So I think it's been around for, I'm going to say maybe 6 years.
Okay.
But, don't quote me on that.
No. All right, any other questions on this? All right, we'll take a motion.
Okay. I move that we vote to approve seeking partial reimbursement for foster care transportation costs through a federal ESSA funding model for a portion of our foster care transportation costs, and request a vote at the spring 2025 town meeting to authorize the Chelmsford Public Schools to enter into the MOU.
I'll second the motion.
Very nicely done. All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
All right, thank you. Next up is just the personnel report for the month of December. Just a couple of new hires, a couple of resignations. No significant action where it's the middle of the year.
So we lost a psychologist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that one of the new ones that we had hired, or?
Yes.
Yes.
That was a new one that started here, I think, in September. So they're in the process of, posting and interviewing. I know they did some interviews. I don't know if they were successful finding someone. But in the interim, just, we're always going to have IEPs that need to be administered. We're always going to have testing that needs to get done. So anytime we have a bridge like this for a psychologist, sometimes we would look for like a part-time individual to come in and do some work. Sometimes we have to contract out the work. The work still has to get done one way or the other. So it will. But I know they're in the process of trying to find a full-time permanent replacement. I just don't know where they're at in that. I don't think this was expected, because the person just started in September.
Yeah.
All right, any questions, other questions on personnel? All right, last item.
And last for me, Valley Collaborative. So this is your quarterly report of business from the collaborative. This is one of the requirements that we provided to the school committee so that you can monitor and have information on what's happening at Valley. Again, I'm your representative on the board of directors of Valley. The copy of the newsletter is here, a copy of the treasurer's report is here. They actually just sent along a copy of the approved budget for the year. So I'm going to just forward that to you via email before the end of the week. But you have the Valley brochure in front of you for the year. So it's just a communication. It would just be a motion to accept the report and place it on file.
Okay.
It's a familiar face there in a picture.
I was going to say, there's a very nice picture on the front of the
It
newsletter.
Yeah,
is.
there is. Our own star. Maggie King.
Just looking at that proposed budget, it looks like their surplus is going to be going down.
Say again?
Their surplus is going to be going down over the next couple of years, it looks like. From what they're- I mean, just what they have there and that.
It's a little bit.
Oh, on the financial,
Yeah.
yeah, it depends on how much, this is a conversation we have every year. I think for next year's purposes, we're gonna probably be flat. So, they've been turning around like $1 million to, sometimes $2 million. We have been investing more money in, because like, we didn't actually purchase vehicles during COVID because you couldn't get vehicles. So now they're actually able to get vehicles again. We're doing a bigger investment in vehicle replacement. We put more money in infrastructure. So the reason they have excess money at the end of the year is that if you don't invest in these things, but we've actually been doing a little investing. So I'm gonna guess our reimbursement's gonna be about the same, about 300,000 from them for next year. But we're doing much more as a collaborative, investing in programs, technology, facilities, and vehicles.
Yeah, I just saw the drop and wondered if that's gonna affect us, in terms of our budget, because we've been having budgeting in that, 200,000, 300,000.
No, I think we're still gonna be in about the $300,000 range for next year.
About the same. Oh, you want me to make a
Yep,
motion?
sure, that'd be great.
I move that we accept the quarterly reports on the collaborative business for fiscal year 25 second quarter as presented.
Seconded.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Great.
All
And
right.
that concludes my stuff.
Okay, any liaison reports?
I attended remotely, which was very nice because I was sick, the South Row PTA meeting, and on the 13th. I got to hear about about the math specialist roles from one of the specialists and some of the new work they're doing to support Reveal Math and supporting staff, so that was really great. Family engagement night is approaching for South Row. They polled parents to find out what topics parents and family members and caregivers were curious about and wanted to learn more about and discuss. And the winning topics, so to speak, are digital safety and ADHD and other similar student needs. So those topics are going to be sort of discussed among staff and family members that go to that night. Kindness Challenge Month is approaching, and the Student Council, which, as we've heard, is huge this year, is going to try to take the lead with some coordinated service learning related work that month. And I think those are the big takeaways.
Great. Susan, anything?
Unfortunately, I had a conflict and I couldn't attend the CHIPS PTO meeting. That was a kind of a last minute thing I missed, so I apologize for that. I did attend the Harrington PTO meeting. They've got some nice events coming up that the PTO is sponsoring this coming Saturday. They have a movie night. They're showing Inside Out 2, and it's one where parents can drop students off. So the parents kind of have a night out. So they've got all kinds of appropriate volunteers to make sure it's well staffed and the kids are well supervised, and a very, very specific sign-in, sign-out procedure to make sure it's safe. But they're looking forward to that. Their Scholastic Book Fair is going to be held the week of February 11th. Every day during the school week, the kids will go during their library time. They're also going to have something after school on Wednesday. I don't remember the exact time, but it's when families can come in and shop for the book fair. So those are two things that the PTO is doing. And then the school, not just through the PTO, but the school is holding a cultural diversity night on February 12th from 6 o'clock to 7:30, and as a way for kids and families just to share their own families' cultural experiences and traditions, and they're hoping for a great turnout for that.
That was February 12th.
February 12th, 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m.
South Row is doing that as well. I think in March. I'll get the date for that as well, because that's always a fun event.
Wonderful.
And then I'm continuing to regularly attend meetings for the town strategic plan steering committee. We're getting closer and closer to coming up with our finalizing the strategic plan. We're at the point now where we've got the mission statement, the vision, pretty narrowed down, the strands that are important. I forget what we're calling them, but the strands like the school committee has. And now it's just a matter of really working on exactly what the goals and their performance measures should be. But we're, I think, going through the third rendition of it, so we're getting closer and closer to getting that finalized, and we'll be able to share it with the school committee, the select board, and the community. One thing I just wanted to give this group a heads up on is that under the strand for effective government, there is going to be an objective about collaboration between the school committee and the select board to meet twice a year, just to support effectiveness on both sides. That was a lot of the feedback had to do with schools being good and schools needing work. And as a part of a measure for effective government, it was just thought that there needs to be just greater communication between these two committees. At first, it was worded that it was going to be the select board helping the school committee to enact the school's strategic plan. And as I put forth, it needs to be a two-way street. It needs to just be conversation about what's good for the town as a whole. So it is being reworked that the goal will reflect that better, that it's not just select board coming to oversee the schools. It's a two-way street on how we can share ideas and just make things better for everyone in town. So we'll see how that will play out, but that looks like it's going to be a goal for the town.
I really appreciate that shift. I am curious, is there currently a liaison? So I know we have a liaison to the select board. Is there currently a select board who is like the liaison to us?
Yes. Yeah.
Technically
It
there
was
is.
Virginia.
It was, I don't, is it still?
It has been Virginia for the last couple of years.
I know
But
there's,
she doesn't come to the meetings.
No, unless there was, a reason for her, like that, something related to the school, the select board, they would go. Just like if there's something related to schools, I'll go to the school.
So you don't regularly go to the select board
Right,
meetings?
right. I'll
on
look,
and
check at
ask?
the agenda, see if there's anything school related and
Okay,
go.
got it. Okay, thank you.
A lot of times I follow it on the televised, meetings too. Maybe they do
Right.
as well.
I look at their agenda, every agenda that comes
Yes.
out, just to see what's going on,
But thank you very much for that input. That was great. I attended 2 meetings. I went to the high school PTO meeting because it's John, but he couldn't make it, so I went to it. They have an after-prom date, June 4th, that evening, that whole night and morning. The fundraiser they've come up with for the prom, that they like to make it into an annual thing, is a pickleball tournament. So I thought that was pretty good because we have the courts.
You can enter.
Courts, right?
Pickleball pro here.
Pickleball. Really good. And they have somebody, one of the folks who's been attending the meeting regularly, who is a player and has been in tournaments before and so on. They're opening up to the students and family community first, and then they're going to open it up to the community last. And so it's students, families, and community. And then you can sponsor a court for $100 as an organization or an individual, if you like. I thought it was great. Then this way, they won't have to go at the last, at the end of the year, asking just the senior parents to contribute as much for this event. Their December gift cards fundraiser made over $800, which was really good. And they're doing grab and goes from all of the donations they got from parents and families at the beginning of the year. So they're doing grab and goes throughout the year for staff. And they have one big event coming up for staff this coming month. So that was the CHSPTO, and they are very active and doing an incredible job there. Council of Schools was my other meeting that I attended. This one was by Zoom. Dr. Lang was there, Dr. Hirsch was there, all the way to the end, right, Dr. Hirsch?
The end, because they moved that agenda item all the way.
Yeah, quite interesting, wasn't it? Okay, so they are also, in my opinion, doing an incredible job. Very well organized, the meetings are very well run, and they're doing a lot of work. But one of the things is they're working with Dr. Lang and administration to get a micro site going under our website, and that's going really well. And I believe that Jenny is the Director of Communications and Media for us, is working with them to get this done. she's very nonchalant about it, but she's been doing a lot of work on this. The read-in is scheduled for March, community read-in is gonna be March 3rd through the 7th. I forwarded a couple of emails to you all where there's a link there if you wanna sign up and so on.
They had sent it to me directly. so-
Just to give you some information in case you didn't get it that way. And then finally, as Patrick mentioned, Katie Greer's coming on digital health and safety. It's a presentation at the PAC on the 23rd at 6:30, starting at 6:30. She's gonna,
This Thursday.
it's this Thursday, and she's gonna be coming back to the district. They're trying
Yeah,
to line
later
her
in
up
the
for an
spring.
additional date.
I think some date in April.
Right, so that's great, because that's one of the topics South Row is very concerned about there. So terrific, as are all parents concerned about digital safety.
Before I start, mixed doubles, I think you two pickleball mixed
Yes.
doubles. I think
That
that
would
would
be
be
terrific.
outstanding.
I'll
I would
sponsor your
sponsor
board.
that court. I think mixed doubles.
And that's how I got fired.
All right, we had our first meeting of the Parker Building Committee a couple weeks ago. So main focus of this meeting was to pick a subcommittee to select an owner's project manager for this. You know, it was nice, we got into the feasibility study earlier, and we were on a pretty tight timeline. We were supposed to get everything done by April. Unfortunately or unfortunately, we got pushed to May. So we actually have a little bit more time to do it. I think we're still gonna try to get things posted and if you wanna.
Yeah, so originally, 4 districts got moved forward to the December board meeting instead of having to wait till the end of February, which was great. We were one of those 4 because we were done everything early. So part of the process is, the first step is to secure the owner's project manager. You have to issue like an RFP, it's called an RFS. There's a whole long process with that. And then once you go through that process, you have to bring your recommendation to the MSBA has a special OPM review panel. And we were originally slated to go like the first week in April for review. We ended up getting bumped from the first meeting in April to the first meeting in May, which, again, you know, it would have been a little bit nicer in some respect to be able to just get in there in April, because then that lets you get onto the designer a little bit quicker. But at the same time, it was a very tight timeline for responses to firms. So this might actually benefit us a little bit. It was going to be a 2-week response time, which is really quick for to put a full proposal together. So we're going to keep the original advertisement date. So we're going to go out with the other 2 districts who were originally advertising for the April date, but we're going to relax our schedule a little bit. So we're going to give 3 weeks for the response, and then we're going to have 3 weeks for the review instead of 2. So then we're going to go in May. But all in all, I think it's going to end up to be fine. We're still going to be advertised early, so people will know that our project is there, and they're going to have a little bit more time to put our proposal together. So, but that's the first step. And then I see probably between May and August will be the designer. So that'll be getting the designer on board.
The process is starting to go. So,
Yeah, it's going to pick up, and then really next fall, it's going to hit heavy with community participation, school participation, things along those lines.
So we'll meet again, I think, end of March, beginning of April as a committee.
Yes, so the subcommittee will review the responses and then bring a recommendation before the full committee, which ultimately, that'll probably be sometime in early to mid-April, because that then has to go to the MSBA for May.
And then the other thing I have, Alumni Association is supposed to meet tomorrow night, so we'll see. But they usually meet at 7 o'clock in the high school, so. All right, anyone have any new items?
No, the only thing I wanted to see if it's at all possible, on that schedule of departments presenting, if there's any place in there and a possibility of adding in the specialists, some of the specialist groups. So for instance, we really haven't had an update on what's happening with languages or what's happening with health education and so on.
They're on there.
They are in there? Did I miss this?
Well, I think I call it world languages. And then
They're in there.
it
How
was
about,
Health and phys ed.
they are in there?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I missed it.
Double check. If there's a group that's not on there that you want, let me know. Then we
That'd be
certainly
great.
can add them, but that is all the specials. The only ones we have to add beyond that, as Dennis mentioned, are the 2 departments, so like tech
Yeah.
and sped.
Yeah.
But all the other ones are on there.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? I just want to remind people, I think we start negotiations Monday.
Next Monday.
Next Monday, the different groups are going to start to meet.
I was gonna say, we are only supposed to physically be at the ones we are
Correct, yeah.
So like, I go to the ones that I'm already aware of that we've been.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, I've
And
just
it's-
been communicating just directly with the people.
Yep.
For the sessions.
I knew there
Here.
was something on Monday, but I hadn't heard more details, and I don't think that's when I have to do
No,
yet,
that's
so,
the one,
yeah.
You two are,
Monday is the
There's a
first
teacher
one
one
is
and a
teachers.
yeah, so
then
John and I
paras.
are,
And I'm not at either of those.
US, I think,
four,
is
you
like
guys
a
are
week and a half
different
after
times.
that.
we have a
February.
different
Yeah,
date.
it's the admin group.
Yeah.
so I just want to remind people, because I know sometimes it gets kind of lost. The other thing, just to put a plug in, this is more of a general plug, lots of open town meeting rep seats. So anybody watching at home that interested in getting involved,
Except in 9, I believe.
part of the town, and, schools are part of the town, so, any kind of support there, so, you can just I think, go to the town clerk, I think you have a couple more weeks to do that.
Yeah.
All you think you need is 5 or 10 signatures, and
10
you're
signatures.
in, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
10.
Right, so,
This was something, Dennis, too, that Dr. Lang did raise with the council, which was really good, and I did too. Because right there, we have huge leadership among our parent groups, right at that council of schools. And one of the things that came up was to see what the openings were by the precincts that match up with our schools. Because, for example, some of are full, they have enough reps, but some have no reps at all that they really need.
Only about 1 or 2 of the precincts are full, so
Right.
just
Yeah.
about anywhere in town. that
yeah,
you
there's a
live.
lot of opening. I
could
know
use
that
more
they
people.
put out some feelers, to
Yeah.
try to get more people involved, so just want to throw it out there since, people are watching, so.
Yeah.
And to let people know that it's a big commitment twice a year, but all the rest of the year, it's not a big commitment. So it doesn't take as much time as people might be worried about, so.
And you learn a lot.
You do learn a lot.
Yeah, you learn a lot, but it's not a huge amount of time in terms of commitment.
I think we're all town meeting reps, right? Yeah, so,
No,
yeah.
not yet.
Oh, no, that's right. All right, so, no public comment, nobody had emails, so I believe we can take a motion to adjourn.
I moved to adjourn.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
A little bit more than I.